prisoner sprints through the pouring rain, his heart pounding in panic. But before he can make it far, a cold blade plunges straight into his neck. The killer pulls the knife out with clinical precision and simply walks away. In the shadows, the man who ordered the hit stands watching, his eyes as indifferent as if he had just thrown away a piece of trash. The prisoner slumps onto the soaked ground, his blood swirling into the rainwater. In his final moments, a bitter thought flashes through his mind. Dying like this is just too unfair. He had only just started wanting to live truthfully, wanting to become a decent Han-young, and now it's all over. The story actually begins a short while ago. This is South Korea in the future, the year 2035. Judge Han-young finishes his morning run and returns home. He quietly makes coffee and prepares breakfast while his wife is still fast asleep. Even when she wakes up, Han-young continues to eat in silence. They don't exchange a single word, living under the same roof like total strangers. Minutes later, Han-young drives to his workplace, the Seoul Central District Court. Outside the gates, a massive crowd is protesting, demanding that Gajin Chemical take responsibility for a series of industrial accidents. Among the protesters is a very young girl. She looks incredibly frail, her face pale and sickly. Her grandmother comforts her, promising that the people who caused all this will be punished and made to pay for their actions. At that moment, Han-young appears, draped in his powerful judicial robes. He receives a phone call and reassures the person on the other end not to worry. "This isn't my first time doing this," he says, but after hanging up, he begins sharpening a pencil unconsciously. He seems deeply conflicted, and by the time he stops, the pencil has been whittled down to a tiny stub. Inside the courtroom, the lawyer for the victims argues that the toxic working environment caused 24 workers to develop leukemia and brain tumors. 9 of them have already passed away at a very young age. However, Gajin Chemical presents its own evidence, claiming that chemical levels were always within the safe range. It turns out that earlier, the CEO of Gajin Chemical had secretly met with sinkhole Han-young's father-in-law and the head of the powerful Hinal law firm, asking him to fix the case. Sinkhole immediately called Han-young, ordering him to hand down a light sentence to protect Gajin. But what the father-in-law didn't know was that at that exact moment, Han-young was actually sitting right there with the Gajin CEO. Han-young laid out his own conditions. The court would dismiss the plaintiff's claims entirely, ensuring Gajin's reputation remained spotless. The price? 300 million won, paid in untraceable anonymous bonds. It was a clean deal with no paper trail. Back in the courtroom, Han-young dismisses the workers' lawsuit and declares the company innocent of all charges. The room explodes in a frenzy of rage. Upon hearing the verdict, the young girl vomits blood right there in court, while her grandmother screams in absolute despair. Han-young remains cold, simply telling his staff to handle it before walking out. When news of the verdict breaks, his father-in-law calls him in a rage. He demands to know why Han-young acquitted Gajin completely when they only asked for a reduced sentence. Han-young gives a polite, hollow answer to end the call, but as soon as he hangs up, a surge of anger hits him. He knows exactly what he is in the eyes of his wife's family. A puppet placed in the right spot to do their bidding. Sinkhole actually suspects that his son-in-law went behind his back to make a side deal, but he chooses to look the other way. In his mind, as long as a man is greedy for money, he can still be controlled. To vent his stress, Han-young goes for an evening run. But when he gets home, he receives devastating news. The young girl from the lawsuit has jumped from the hospital rooftop. She left a note saying she didn't want to be a burden to her poor grandmother anymore. Online, the public is fueled by rage, expressing total despair and a complete loss of faith in the law and justice. Despite his cold exterior, Han-young's conscience begins to eat him alive. The next day is his mother's birthday. His icy wife brings over a bag of fruit and tells him to make sure he keeps the receipt, so his mother can exchange it if she doesn't like it. Han-young takes the gift to his mother's house. While looking at a family photo, old memories suddenly flood back. It turns out his father was once a worker at the S-Group factory. On the day his father and the other workers were protesting and on strike, Han-young was actually hired as part of the security force to suppress the riot. He witnessed his own father being brutally beaten right before his eyes. Since then, he has been tormented by one question. Did his father recognize him among the thugs that day? A moment later, Han-young's mother returns and asks him point-blank if he truly judged the case fairly. She then tells him to come with her to a funeral to apologize to a neighbor, a woman who just lost her beloved granddaughter because of his verdict. She feels deeply ashamed that her son, a man with the prestigious title of judge, was the person who cut the final lifeline of those miserable people. Han-young stubbornly lies, insisting he only followed the law. His mother tells him that if he can firmly state his judgment was fair, she will believe him and protect him from the world's criticism. That statement leaves Han-young stunned. every excuse he had gets choked up in his throat. Meanwhile, the giant S Group, the powerhouse behind Gaijin Chemical, officially enters the sights of the steel prosecutor, Jin-A. Despite fierce resistance from CEO Choi, she directly leads a prosecution team to raid and search the corporate headquarters. Backed into a corner, Tae-sik from S Group desperately calls a man named Kong for help. Kong agrees to handle the situation, but his price is steep. S Group must give him total control with no way out. Tae-sik is forced to nod in agreement. Kong then calls Seon-cheol, demanding they use Judge Han-young to try this case exactly according to their instructions. Meanwhile, Han-young discovers his mother left her asthma inhaler at home. He rushes to catch up to her, but at that exact moment, he gets a call from his father-in-law, Seon-cheol, ordering a meeting. By the time he hangs up, his mother has already boarded a bus and disappeared. When Han-young arrives at the meeting, he realizes Tae-sik is already sitting there. At the same time, Han-young's mother arrives to pay her respects to the neighbor's unfortunate granddaughter. She is cornered by the grieving grandmother, who vents her absolute rage, scolding and beating Han-young's mother severely. But his mother doesn't fight back. She accepts the blows as the punishment she must bear for her son's sins. She is in agonizing pain, knowing her beloved son has become a corrupt judge who has lost his soul. On her way home, she suddenly suffers a massive asthma attack and collapses on the street. Han-young sees a call from an unknown number, but he doesn't pick up because he's too busy pouring drinks for his father-in-law and Tae-sik. By the time he hears the news and rushes to the hospital, his mother is already in a coma. Han-young breathes a sigh of relief, thinking the situation isn't too bad yet. But right then, his mother's heart stops. The doctors do everything they can to save her, but she doesn't make it. In that moment, Han-young is paralyzed with grief, and this becomes the ultimate turning point that changes his life forever. The next day, Kong orders Judge Kim to transfer Han-young to the criminal division, assigning him to handle the S Group lawsuit in a way that favors them. Prosecutor Jin-A is currently trying to squeeze a confession out of the S Group CEO, threatening him with life in prison if he takes the fall alone. But he remains determined not to utter a single word. Jin-A's subordinates report that Han-young has joined the criminal court. They've heard plenty of rumors about what kind of judge Han-young really is. It's clear this is a scheme by S Group to evade its crimes. Through their investigation, Jin-A and her team discover that Han-young graduated from a very average university. His rise as a powerful judge only truly began the moment he became the son-in-law of the Hinal law firm. From that point on, if a case was handled by his father-in-law's law firm, Han-young would rule in their favor 100% of the time. But for cases that didn't involve the conglomerate, he was actually known to be quite a fair judge. It was clear that the S Group was just a front for the Hinal law firm. Meanwhile, Han-young's father, who suffers from Alzheimer's, is staying at a luxury nursing home with a staggering cost of 200 million won per year. Every penny of that bill is paid by Han-young's wife. On the surface, it seems like his in-laws are spoiling him, but the reality is much darker. Han-young doesn't own a single asset in his own name. He has nothing. Because of this, he's earned two humiliating nicknames. The first is the in-laws puppet. The second is the 6 p.m. finisher. Why? Because at exactly 6 p.m., Han-young clocks out. His wife's family only gives him the bare minimum number of cases just to keep him employed and under their thumb. While this is happening, Tae-sik brings food to Director Choi, but he includes a deadly dessert, a poison pill. He forces Choi to take his own life, threatening that it's the only way to keep his family safe. Not long after, Prosecutor Jin-A receives the news. Director Choi has committed suicide in his holding cell. In the midst of this chaos, Han-young visits his father at the nursing home. It's revealed that he has a secret safe there, filled with cash and gold that he's been secretly stockpiling away from his wife's family for the past 10 years. Suddenly, Jin-A confronts Han-young directly. She tells him she's indicting the chairman of S Group in the upcoming case he's presiding over. She doesn't hold back, calling him a puppet of the in-laws to his face. She warns him to judge this case strictly by the law, or she will do whatever it takes to bring him down. But Han-young doesn't seem fazed by her threats. Shortly after, Han-young learns of Director Choi's suicide. A few days later, Jin-A meets him again and hands over a USB drive. It contains evidence of all of Tae-sik's embezzlement and misappropriation of funds. It turns out the accounting chief of S Construction had reached out to her with the evidence. Jin-A doesn't even deny her personal grudge against S Group, admitting she's been gunning for Tae-sik since the day she became a prosecutor. Following orders from the powerful Elder Kim, Judge Kim sneaks into Han-young's office to sniff out his intentions for the S Group trial. However, Han-young refuses to give anything away and coldly kicks him out. Immediately after, Han-young submits his resignation to the Chief Justice. As soon as he leaves, the Chief Justice calls Han-young's father-in-law to report the news, Sinkhole is caught completely off guard. After work, Judge Kim invites Han Young to dinner with his father, Elder Kim. The elder offers Han Young a prestigious position as the head of research at the Supreme Court, but Han Young reveals he's already handed in his resignation. Despite promises of other juicy positions, Han Young shows zero interest. Elder Kim immediately reports this back to a man named Kong, who then relays it to Han Young's father-in-law. Sinkhole summons Han Young at once. The moment Han Young arrives, his arrogant brother-in-law tries to force him to bow and show respect. Sinkhole tells Han Young to wrap up the S Group case and then join his law firm. He even hands Han Young a pre-written verdict, ordering him to read it exactly as it is in court. But 10 years of being a puppet was finally enough. Han Young snaps. He tells them straight to their faces that he's decided to go independent and that he's divorcing Sinkhole's daughter. Sinkhole warns him that, regardless of his personal life, he must finish the S Group case first. The brother-in-law insults him again, calling him their doll, which makes Han Young's blood boil. He nearly gets into a fight, but ultimately just declares that his deal with Hinal law firm is officially dead. That night, Han Young tells his wife he wants a divorce, but she coldly refuses, telling him that they only divorce when she decides, and he can't even come home without her permission. Feeling like his life is falling apart, Han Young goes out to drink away his sorrows. He gets into a confrontation with 3 thugs and ends up being badly beaten. As he wanders the streets, bloodied and broken, he is haunted by the sins of the last 10 years, the victims of his unfair verdicts and the heartbreaking words his mother spoke before she died. In an instant, tears of deep regret stream down his cheeks. The day of the final judgment finally arrives. Exactly as planned, Tae-sik's lawyer pins all the blame on the deceased director Choi, claiming Tae-sik is completely innocent and had no involvement. Prosecutor Jin-ae, however, stands firm, asserting that Tae-sik was the mastermind behind the entire embezzlement and the creation of a massive slush fund over the last 10 years. She asks the court to sentence him to 6 years in prison and a fine of 12 billion won. Tae-sik sits there with a smug, confident smirk, fully expecting Han Young to declare him innocent. But this time, Han Young is determined to go all in. He stuns the entire room by sentencing Tae-sik to 10 years in prison and a 24 billion won fine, even harsher than what the prosecution requested. Tae-sik immediately loses his mind, erupting in rage right in the middle of the courtroom. Kong glares at Han Young with eyes like bullets before storming out in a fury. Jin-ae can't believe things went so smoothly. In reality, it took every ounce of Han Young's courage to pull off this explosive move. His father-in-law immediately calls to demand an explanation, but Han Young doesn't even bother to justify himself. When his wife calls next, he simply repeats his demand for a divorce. But as he soon learns, betraying the mafia is never that simple. Not long after, Han Young is trapped in a sophisticated frame-up for murder and extortion. Even his own defense lawyer refuses to let him speak in court. Han Young struggles to break free, crying out in desperation that he is innocent. The story flashes back to a few days prior, when Han Young visited his mother's grave. He vividly remembered her final words. She had looked him in the eye and said, "If you are truly a fair judge, then state with total confidence that you have judged without bias." Now, Han Young can finally tell his mother that he judged S Group fairly, but she is no longer of this world to witness him fixing his mistakes. Meanwhile, Tae-sik remains unbothered even after being sentenced to 10 years. He treats his time in prison like a short vacation and begins orchestrating a brutal plan to destroy Han Young using Kong as his weapon. By this point, Han Young has officially resigned. As he is packing his belongings in his office, a delivery person arrives. Just as he reaches for his wallet to pay, the delivery man lunges at him, choking him until he blackouts. When Han Young wakes up, he finds himself covered in blood, lying next to a murdered man. The murder weapon, Han Young's own pencil-sharpening knife. When he checks the victim's wallet, he realizes it's the CFO of S Group, the very man who had leaked the evidence to prosecutor Jin-ae. Jin-ae tells him she's certain this is Tae-sik's retaliation. She tells him to stay put and that she'll come to handle the situation. But Han Young panics, changes his clothes, and flees the scene. He doesn't get far before he is surrounded and captured by the police. From fingerprints to the blood found at the scene, every piece of evidence has been meticulously forged to make Han Young look like a cold-blooded killer. He is publicly accused of taking hundreds of millions in bribes over the last decade and then murdering his accomplice to keep him quiet when the scheme was exposed. In court, he desperately maintains his innocence, claiming he didn't even know the victim. But then, his own wife takes the stand. She testifies against him, claiming he took money for fixed trials and laundered the cash through a law firm. To make matters even worse, Han Young receives news that his father has been kicked out of the nursing home. Right before he is transferred to the detention center, Judge Kim hands him a poison pill. He coldly tells Han Young to just end it all, rather than suffering in vain. He then reveals the ultimate betrayal. The plan to destroy him wasn't just Tae-sik's idea. His own wife's family was in on it from the very beginning. But that wasn't all. All of Han Young's gold and cash, which he had hidden in the safe at the nursing home, had been completely wiped out by Judge Kim. Kim had been harboring a deep jealousy toward Han Young for a very long time, and he finally saw this as his golden opportunity for revenge. Without hesitation, Han Young swallowed the poison and was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. But as it turns out, this was all part of Han Young's desperate plan. He had only swallowed half of the pill. After receiving emergency treatment and narrowly escaping the grip of death, Han Young quietly slipped out of the hospital. He rushed straight to a local homeless camp, frantically searching for his father among the dark tunnels and damp, moldy alleys. But before he could find him, a knife was suddenly plunged straight into his neck. The killer pulled the blade out with clinical precision and walked away without looking back. The mastermind behind the hit was none other than Kong. Han Young collapsed onto the soaked ground, his blood swirling into the rainwater. In his dying moments, he hallucinated seeing his mother standing before him. He tried to run toward her, but a heavy chain around his neck pulled him back. It was his father-in-law, the man who had always manipulated him like a pawn on a chessboard. Then, he saw the young girl from the Gaijin chemical lawsuit. Han Young could do nothing but wail in agony, repeatedly begging for her forgiveness. He no longer had his power, nor his judicial robes. Standing before the court of his own conscience, Han Young bowed his head and confessed, "I am a cowardly son. I am a murderer. I am an accomplice to evil." And then, something unbelievable happened. Han Young suddenly found himself standing in the middle of the very first trial of his career. Was his brain replaying his life before death? The defendant in this case was a man named Sang-jin, who claimed he only broke into a house to steal food because he was starving. Han Young suddenly remembered something. He leaped from the judge's bench and lunged toward the man. "You bastard! You're going to get the death penalty!" he roared. He began howling with excitement, leaving the entire courtroom stunned. Everyone thought the judge had officially lost his mind. Feeling embarrassed, Han Young quietly retreated from the room. He figured he was about to be sent to heaven or hell anyway, but since he got to sentence that villain to death, he felt strangely refreshed. However, instead of disappearing into the afterlife, he realized he had a very human urge to handle. While taking care of business in the restroom, he wondered why hell would even have a toilet. Then, he looked into the mirror and saw his face from 10 years ago. His phone also displayed the year, 2025. As he was admiring his youthful reflection, he felt a sharp smack to the back of his head. It was Chief Justice Jong-sik. The Chief Justice thought Han Young was just incredibly nervous about his first solo trial, which explained his psychotic behavior. When he walked out, Han Young ran straight into Judge Kim, the classmate who, in the future, would evict his father from the nursing home and force him to drink poison. In a fit of rage, Han Young almost punched him in the face. Luckily, he remembered it was only 2025, so he quickly changed tactics and hugged Kim instead, thanking him. It was then that Han Young finally believed it. He had truly traveled back 10 years in time. This was the period when he was still a judge at a district court and hadn't yet entered his golden cage. The first thing he did was call his mother. When he heard her voice on the other end, he choked up, calling out, "Mom!" He urgently reminded her to carry her asthma inhaler. His mother, however, thought it was a voice phishing scam because her son was usually so cold and distant. He had never called her mom with such affection before. Turns out that 10 years ago he used to call her auntie, and at this point in time she hadn't even developed asthma yet. Han Young went online to check the news. He saw that Tae-sik was currently the CEO of Showing, while the chairman of S Group was actually Tae-sik's father. During this era, S Group was being accused of tax evasion and managing slush funds, but they always managed to escape justice. Meanwhile, the man named Shin-jin hadn't even become the Chief Justice yet. Han Young realized he had been given a second chance to redo his life and fix the mistakes of his time as a puppet. Since he was just starting out and didn't even have a car yet, he called his best friend, Jong-ho, to borrow an old, beat-up car to get around. Turns out Jong-ho is a legit, high-ranking gangster. In his past life, Han Young had heartlessly turned his back on him the moment he became a pawn for the Hinal law firm. But this time, things are different. Han Young's next stop is the house of a man named Sang-jin. Here's the terrifying truth. Before being caught for petty theft, Sang-jin had actually murdered 3 people. In his previous life, Han Young was fooled by the man's pathetic, innocent act and let him off with a suspended sentence. That one mistake allowed a monster to walk free and kill again, a fact that haunted Han Young with nightmares every single night. By pure chance, the prosecutor on the case, Cheol Woo, shows up at the house because he also suspects something is off. He has no idea why a judge is snooping around a thief's home, but his curiosity gets the best of him, and he follows Han Young inside. Once they're in, Han Young's memory of the future kicks in. He knows the third victim's body was hidden in the fridge. He braces himself for the horror and flings the door open, but to his shock, it's empty. Confused but staying sharp, he notices several bottles of heavy-duty cleaner on the floor and snaps a photo for further study. Later that night, over dinner, Han Young uses his knowledge of the future to place a bet with Cheol-woo on a baseball game. He predicts, with eerie precision, that the Eagles will pull off a massive comeback win in the 11th inning. When it happens exactly as he said, Cheol-woo is left completely speechless. Han Young spends the rest of the night wide awake, obsessively reanalyzing every detail of the case. The next morning, Chief Justice Im calls Han Young in to remind him to keep the sentencing standard. Han Young plays along, promising to follow the rules. In court, he sentences Sang-jin to 1 year in prison, but suspends the sentence for 2 years, effectively letting him walk. Just as the session ends, Han Young spots a very familiar face in the gallery. It's Ju Young, the girl who, in his past life, was the one who hid Sang-jin's third victim inside a kimchi fridge. But before he can reach her, she vanishes. Han Young starts hitting every convenience store in the area, asking if anyone has been buying large amounts of cleaning supplies. Meanwhile, Cheol-woo is staking out Sang-jin's house and reports that the suspect hasn't left. Han Young sends him a chilling text. Sang-jin is a serial killer. Finally, a shop owner recognizes the girl who bought the cleaners. It's Ju Young. Han Young tracks her down to her home and tells her straight out that he knows everything. It turns out Sang-jin had threatened to kill her mother, leaving the poor girl with no choice but to do his dirty work. Han Young kicks the door down and finds Ju Young kneeling in front of a kimchi fridge, sobbing and apologizing over and over. Sure enough, a body is hidden inside. She explains that she once tried to run away, and a woman tried to help her. To silence the witness, Sang-jin murdered the woman and forced Ju Young to hide the corpse. While this is happening, Cheol-woo is following Sang-jin to a children's playground. Han Young screams at him over the phone to arrest the man immediately. Cheol-woo hesitates because he doesn't have concrete proof yet, until Han Young mentions a little girl in a duck print shirt. When Cheol-woo sees Sang-jin's predatory, twisted gaze fixed on that exact little girl, he finally realizes Han Young was telling the truth. But at that exact moment, Sang-jin looks at his phone and bolts. He had installed a hidden camera inside a teddy bear at the house and saw that Han Young had found the body. Knowing Cheol-woo is chasing Sang-jin up a steep hill, Han Young gets Ju Young into the car and has her show him a shortcut to cut the killer off. He tells Ju Young to repeat his words as loud as she can. Sang-jin, I sentence you to death. As the girl finds her courage and screams it out, the killer appears in the headlights. Han Young doesn't hesitate. He slams his foot on the gas and rams Sang-jin with a bone-shattering impact. Han Young walks up to the broken Sang-jin and coldly whispers, "Your living hell starts right here." As the killer is rushed to the hospital, Han Young reveals the secret of the body-filled fridge to Cheol-woo. Stunned, Cheol-woo can't wrap his head around how Han Young knew this man was a serial killer, but Han Young simply shrugs it off, saying that a criminal always leaves a trail eventually. And just like that, Sang-jin is dragged to face the music. The next day, Han Young is the talk of the town, receiving a public shout-out from Chief Justice Jong-sik. But there's a catch. As a junior judge, he's only assigned to petty cases. The massive serial killer trial is technically out of his league. Seeing Han Young's burning ambition, Jong-sik introduces him to Lee-suk, one of the most respected and upright figures in the entire judiciary. Seizing the opportunity, Han Young does something insane. He asks for a voluntary demotion to be the clerk judge just so he can participate in the Sang-jin trial. Lee-suk is deeply impressed by this young man's guts and gives him the green light. Before long, the trial begins, and Han Young takes his place on the bench with unshakable resolve. In his past life, he made a catastrophic mistake with this monster, and he isn't about to let history repeat itself. Leading up to the big day, Han Young personally tracks down the families of all 3 victims. He invites them to the courtroom so they can witness the exact moment true justice is served. When the trial reaches its peak, Han Young ignores all formalities and steps down from the podium. He doesn't just read dry legal codes. He stands in the shoes of the victims and condemns Sang-jin without mercy. He declares that this verdict isn't just from a book, but from the bottom of the victims' families' hearts and the vengeful souls of those who were lost. Death penalty. As the words leave his lips, the room explodes. The audience erupts in applause, and the victims' families break down in tears of gratitude. Even the guards are so disgusted by Sang-jin that they push him out of his wheelchair in rage. Han Young's eyes well up. He has finally fixed the greatest sin of his past life. But the peace doesn't last long. After the trial, Han Young spots Judge Kim, his classmate and future traitor, servilely following a mysterious man. He tails them and realizes the man is a high-ranking criminal judge in Seoul. Digging deeper, he discovers the real puppet master pulling the strings. Shin-jin, the current Seoul judge who, in the future, becomes the chief justice and orders Han-young's murder. Seeing the man who killed him standing right there, Han-young feels a surge of pure, unadulterated hatred. It turns out Shin-jin is in bed with Judge Kim to manipulate verdicts, taking massive bribes from businesses to lighten their sentences for tax evasion. And they aren't stopping there. They are looking to shake down big law firms for even more cash. Their newest target? Seon-cheol, Han-young's future father-in-law and head of Hinal law firm. For nearly a year, Shin-jin has been secretly sabotaging Seon-cheol, making him lose 12 high-profile cases in a row to break his spirit. When the time is right, Shin-jin finally agrees to meet Seon-cheol. At the dinner table, Shin-jin humiliates him, using his own chopsticks to mess up the dishes and eating like an animal. Seon-cheol is disgusted but has to swallow his pride, literally begging Shin-jin for a way to win just one case. Shin-jin relishes the sight of this powerful lawyer groveling. He coldly reminds him that only the one who holds the gavel has the final say. As he leaves the restaurant, he casually orders his pet judge to let Seon-cheol win his next case, treating it like a small scrap of food tossed to a dog. Meanwhile, Han-young takes a break from the war to visit his mother at the scrapyard. He gives her a long, tight hug and stays to help her clean up, laughing and talking more than he ever did in his previous life. A moment later, his father arrives. Seeing his parents both alive and healthy after everything he's been through, Han-young is so overcome with emotion that he can barely speak. That night, Han-young stays over to have dinner with his parents. It's just a simple, home-cooked meal, but to him, it is more precious than anything else in the world. The next day, Isuk hands him an incredibly difficult insurance fraud case, a real trial by fire to see what he's truly made of. The case file belongs to a man named Hyuk-jun. 3 months ago, Hyuk-jun's girlfriend took out a massive life insurance policy, and he was named the sole beneficiary. Recently, she died in a car accident, which immediately put Hyuk-jun at the top of the suspect list. However, there's a catch. He owns a successful restaurant and has a stable income, meaning there's no obvious financial motive for him to murder his girlfriend. He even claims he had absolutely no idea the insurance policy even existed. With the evidence being so thin, the whole case is standing on shaky ground. Han-young decides to head to the crash site himself to investigate. On the day of the accident, the car had plunged off a steep mountain cliff. Hyuk-jun was injured but managed to crawl out of the driver's seat, leaving his unconscious girlfriend behind in the passenger seat. On the surface, it looks like a tragic, straightforward accident. But here's the red flag. Before she died, the girl had taken out a total of 8 different life insurance policies. The total payout? A staggering 12 billion won. And every single cent was set to go to Hyuk-jun. This detail makes it impossible not to wonder. Did someone stage this tragedy on purpose? While he's deep in thought, a female reporter approaches him. She introduces herself, assuming he's a detective, and tries to dig for info on the investigation. Han-young immediately recognizes her. She's the same nosy reporter who hounded him for interviews for years in his past life. He gives her a few polite, vague answers and heads back to his parents' scrapyard. There, he sees a very familiar face, the elderly woman who frequently brings scrap metal to sell. The moment he sees her, Han-young's heart sinks. He can never forget that she is the grandmother of Na-young, the young girl who died in the chemical plant case. Because of his corrupt, soul-selling verdict in his previous life, this woman lost her only granddaughter. Han-young quietly makes a cup of coffee and offers it to her. With his eyes turning red with tears, he suddenly drops to his knees and bows his head, apologizing with everything he has. He doesn't explain why, but his voice is heavy with a lifetime of regret. On his way home from the scrapyard, Han-young spots Na-young herself, waiting by the road to walk home with her grandmother. In this timeline, she's still alive. Next year, she'll start high school, and she plans to find a job right after graduation so her grandmother doesn't have to work so hard anymore. The grandmother tells her she doesn't need to become a respected judge like Han-young. She just hopes her granddaughter can at least finish college. Han-young silently follows them from a distance, clutching a bag of healthy food. But he can't find the courage to step forward and give it to them. In the end, he just returns to his parents and tells them that the next time the old woman visits, they must make her some nutritious drinks on his behalf. Meanwhile, Seon-cheol, following a suggestion from the corrupt Shin-jin, reaches out to Chief Justice Jong-sik. He specifically asks to set up a blind date for the rising star judge Han-young with his youngest daughter, Se-hee. The meeting is set for 2 p.m., but Se-hee doesn't bother showing up until 3 o'clock. This is her signature move, making people wait for an hour to tame them and show them who's boss. However, When she finally strolls into the restaurant, she can't find Han Young anywhere. It turns out he's currently relaxing at a completely different cafe, with zero intention of showing up on time. In his past life, she did the exact same thing to him, and he's not falling for it again. Han Young calmly flips through the insurance case file. He remembers clearly that, in his previous life, Hyuk-jun was declared innocent, only for the truth to come out 3 years later when he was caught staging a second accident to kill another girlfriend. Only after Se-hee has arrived at the meeting spot does Han Young finally send her a text, casually mentioning that he might be running a little late. Furious, Se-hee bolts out of her seat and storms out of the restaurant. On her way out, she bumps into a waiter and stumbles, nearly falling, but Han Young suddenly appears and catches her from behind. Still boiling with rage, she starts taking out her anger on the waiter, but Han Young steps in to stop her. Infuriated by his interference, she immediately winds up and delivers a stinging slap across his face, screaming at him, asking who he thinks he is to make someone wait. Han Young remains perfectly calm. He coldly points out that her actions just now constitute criminal battery and that he could easily file a lawsuit. He warns her that if this news goes public, he certainly won't be the one who loses. With just a few sharp words, Han Young forces the spoiled socialite to turn around and apologize to the waiter. Although the incident ends there, the vendetta between the two has officially begun. Little did she know that a bystander in the restaurant caught the entire slap on camera and posted it online. Judge Kim happens to see the viral video and goes to find Han Young to dig for some info. Han Young doesn't hide anything. He frankly admits that he did indeed have a blind date with the daughter of the powerful law firm head. Hearing this, Judge Kim can't hide his feelings of inferiority and jealousy. He's been slaving away under the corrupt Shinjin for years without ever being promoted or valued. Meanwhile, his colleague Han Young is constantly being noticed by the higher-ups and is even being set up with a daughter from a high-status family. Han Young just gives him a light, playful jab and heads straight to the courtroom. The trial for Hyuk-jun resumes drawing a massive crowd, not just the interested parties but many other judges as well. Soon after, Isuk, Jong-sik, and even Han Young's best friend show up one by one. Everyone is curious to see how he'll handle this nearly impossible case. This time, the star witness is the victim's cousin, Jae-young, who is also the person who directly set up the insurance plan. On the stand, she firmly asserts that before her cousin died, she had never told Hyuk-jun about the insurance policy. If the court accepts this testimony, it would erase Hyuk-jun's motive for a money-motivated murder, meaning there would be no basis for the charges, and he could walk free. However, since the cousin was the only one who knew about the insurance, she is the key link that needs a deep dive. Han Young demands to check the witness's phone. She can't refuse, but she only hands over her work phone. Immediately, Han Young demands her personal phone as well. She starts fumbling, claiming she lost it. At that exact second, a ringtone blares out from inside her handbag. The caller ID on the screen? None other than Judge Han Young himself. It turns out Han Young had already tracked down Ji-young's private number and called it right there in court as if he had known the truth all along. With her private phone ringing in the middle of the courtroom, Ji-young has no way to lie her way out and is forced to hand over the device. Right then and there, Han Young projects intimate photos of the defendant, Hyuk-jun, and the witness, Jae-young, onto the screen. Faced with this undeniable smoking gun, Hyuk-jun can no longer maintain his act. He breaks down, bows his head, and confesses everything. The shocking truth? He and Jae-young were the ones actually in a relationship. That night, Jae-young had introduced her boyfriend to her cousin because the two women were very close. All three of them were drinking together, but once Jae-young passed out at the table, Hyuk-jun and the cousin kept drinking. In their drunken state, the two of them ended up sleeping together. Soon after, the cousin confronts Hyuk-jun and drops a bombshell. She's pregnant. She shows him a positive pregnancy test and uses it to force him into an early marriage. Backed into a corner, Hyuk-jun is forced to break up with Jae-young, the woman he actually loves, to become the cousin's official boyfriend. However, he later discovers it was all a scam. She was never pregnant, and she used a fake test just to trap him. Driven by guilt and resentment, Hyuk-jun secretly reconnects with Jae-young, and the two resume their affair in the shadows. But a secret like that can't stay hidden forever, and the cousin soon finds out about their betrayal. Fueled by hatred for her lies, Hyuk-jun waits until she takes out a life insurance policy. While driving on a deserted road, he unbuckles her seatbelt, floors the accelerator, and plunges the car off a mountain cliff, staging a fatal accident. Han Young's success in cracking this case was partly thanks to the female reporter he met at the crash site. Since he is from the future, he knew that the cousin's private phone was the smoking gun. When the reporter mentioned she knew Jae-young, Han Young immediately asked for her private number, allowing him to pull off that dramatic phone call in court that left the witness with no defense. News of Han Young's rising fame eventually reaches the corrupt Shinjin, who decides to attend a hearing in person. Watching the proceedings, Shinjin senses something abnormal. It was as if Han Young already knew about the existence of the secret phone and the outcome of the trial before it even began. Thanks to his brilliant performance, Isuk respects Han Young even more. He is about to be promoted to the Seoul Court as a Supreme Court Justice and wants to bring Han Young with him. However, Han Young remembers clearly that in his past life, the judiciary was soon swallowed by a storm of reform, and even an upright man like Isuk couldn't escape the fallout. Not wanting a righteous man to fall, Han Young flatly refuses the invitation. He even resolves to prevent Isuk from becoming a Supreme Court Justice because Shinjin has long viewed Isuk as a thorn in his side. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Han Young chooses to stand by Isuk, teaming up to take Shinjin down one step at a time. Back in his office, Han Young hears the voice of Chief Justice Jong-sik from a distance and reflexively dives under his desk to hide. To his surprise, Jong-sik crawls under the desk with him. "What's wrong with you? Did the success go to your head?" After scolding him, Jong-sik delivers a message. Isuk has agreed to grant one of Han Young's requests, no questions asked. As soon as Jong-sik leaves, Han Young gets a distress call from the reporter, Nayeon. Her father, a security guard at the palace complex, has been falsely accused of theft. Nayeon knows nothing about the law and turns to Han Young for help. Hearing the name Palace, Han Young immediately recalls a case from his past life. The home of Director Lee from a major hospital was broken into, and a secret ledger hidden in a safe vanished. Meanwhile, Director Lee is in a panic, calling Shinjin because that ledger contains earth-shattering secrets about the most powerful people in the country. Shinjin immediately orders an assassin to find that ledger at any cost. Han Young arrives at the palace and quickly spots a suspicious figure lingering nearby. He follows Nayeon to the equipment room, where her father is being surrounded and interrogated by a group of guards who are trying to pin the theft on him. Han Young walks in and uses his legal knowledge to shut them down. When the head of security tries to argue, claiming he has his own lawyer, Han Young fires back with ice-cold authority. In court, a judge stands above both lawyers and prosecutors. There is only one law, and the final verdict is mine. Stunned by his power, the entire group of guards immediately begins to beg for mercy. Thanks to his intervention, Han Young successfully rescues Nayeon and her father. Afterward, he tracks down his best friend, Jong Ho, asking him to use his underworld connections to find the person who broke into the palace complex. When Han Young arrives, he finds Jong Ho and his crew sitting in a tiny shop, devouring a massive pot of blood sausages. It turns out they're eating the food to settle a debt the owner owes them. But as soon as they finish, the lady owner actually scolds Jong Ho, saying that if he keeps eating away the debts of everyone who's struggling, he'll be bankrupt in no time. As it turns out, despite his terrifying appearance, Jong Ho is a loan shark with a heart of gold. He genuinely cares for the poor merchants in the market. Even though he has a reputation for high-interest lending, most of the money he collects goes right back into helping the needy or toward charity. Because of this, people in the market often joke that Jong Ho must have grown angel wings on his back a long time ago. When Han Young asks for help finding the thief, Jong Ho agrees instantly, on one condition. He doesn't want this to blow back on Han Young. Still, he can't help but worry. If a judge is bypassing the police to find something, that something must be incredibly dangerous. Luckily, Jong Ho knows every low-level thief in the area like the back of his hand. Jong Ho's loyalty makes Han Young flash back to his original life. His father was a man so honest that he was constantly being scammed, leaving the family in crushing poverty. As a child, Han Young wanted toys but never dared to ask for them. His father only told him to study hard and become a judge. To make ends meet as a young man, Han Young and Jong Ho worked for a private security firm, the kind of company hired to brutally suppress labor protests. In a cruel twist of fate, Han Young's father was among the protesters that day. From a distance, Han Young watched his own father get beaten to the ground. He was about to rush to his side, but Jong Ho dragged him away just as the police raided the scene. Not long after, the security company countersued Han Young's father, framing him for assault and claiming he had broken someone's bones. He was sentenced to a year and a half in prison. Standing in that courtroom years ago, Han Young watched helplessly as his father was sentenced. He knew he was the only witness who could prove his father's innocence, but he didn't dare to speak up, because doing so meant admitting he had abandoned his father to save his own skin. That guilt haunted him for years, fueling his obsession with becoming a judge as the only way to make it up to his dad. The man who masterminded the frame job against Han Young's father was Tae-sik, who, in this current timeline, is still just the director of S Construction. While lost in thought, Han Young finds himself standing in front of Tae-sik's headquarters. Suddenly, he witnesses a woman blocking Tae-sik's car in the middle of the street. It's prosecutor Jin-ae, serving an emergency arrest warrant for tax evasion. Tae-sik isn't rattled at all. In a move of pure arrogance, he flicks his cigarette ash onto Jin-ae before casually getting into her car. Han Young is frozen in shock. That face, that overwhelming ego, it's the exact same Tae-sik from his past life. The man Han Young had eventually sentenced to life in prison. And the man responsible for the accident that led to Han Young's death. In this moment, Han Young finally realizes why Jin-ae's eyes were always so full of hatred whenever she looked at Tae-sik. That night, the news of the arrest is reported to Shin-jin. He immediately calls Tae-sik's father, the chairman of S Group, and explains that the police have already obtained the internal investigation ledgers. The prosecution had to strike fast with an emergency arrest to block the investigation from going further. The plan is simple. If Tae-sik can hold out for just 48 hours, he'll be released on bail. Almost immediately, Jin-ae's superiors begin pressuring her to leave Tae-sik alone and stop expanding the investigation. By the next morning, a complete set of new account books is delivered, perfectly matching the investigation documents and proving that Tae-sik's company is clean. The order for his release is issued immediately. Jin-ae is fuming with rage, but her hands are tied. At the same time, Han Young's father sees the news of the investigation on TV and instantly recognizes the man who destroyed his life all those years ago. Watching his father let out a heavy, defeated sigh as Tae-sik walked free yet again, Han Young makes a final vow. He will partner with Jin-ae and bring Tae-sik down, no matter the cost. But before they can make their move, Han Young has one top priority: finding that missing secret ledger. Jong-ho tracks down a thug fresh out of prison who, along with his crew, was the one who had broken into Director Lee's home. When Han Young and Jong-ho corner the guy, he pulls out a massive bag of cash, but the ledger is nowhere to be found. Pushed to the brink, the thief finally remembers a crucial detail. Thinking it was just some useless notebook, he had tossed the ledger into a trash bin. At the exact same time, Shin-jin's professional assassin picks up the trail, realizing the ledger is now buried somewhere in the city's mountains of garbage. It becomes a frantic, high-stakes race against time. Jong-ho calls in his entire gang to literally tear the landfill apart, searching for the needle in the haystack. As Han Young waits in an agony of suspense, he suddenly receives an unexpected call from his mother. She tells him she just bought a new load of scrap metal for her yard, and inside, she found a strange, misplaced notebook. Han Young rushes over, and when he finally holds the book in his hands, his heart stops. Inside is a massive, detailed list of high-ranking officials involved in illegal military service evasion scandals. Han Young is so overwhelmed with joy that he doesn't even notice the assassin watching him silently from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. But Han Young doesn't wait. With the immediate backing of the Honorable Isuk, he organizes an emergency press conference. Standing before a sea of cameras and flashing lights, Han Young opens the ledger and begins reading every single name out loud for the entire country to hear. He declares with iron resolve that he will hunt down every person on that list and make them pay for their corruption. Back in his office, Shin-jin watches the live broadcast in stunned silence, his face turning a ghostly shade of pale. He knows it's over. At that exact moment, his phone begins to ring. It's the president calling him repeatedly, a clear signal that a massive political earthquake is about to level the halls of power, and Han Young is the one who just pulled the trigger. It turns out that Director Lee's missing ledger was actually a goldmine of fake medical records, used to help the children of high-ranking officials dodge their mandatory military service. The moment Han Young gets his hands on it, he immediately calls reporter Na-yeon to meet at a cafe. But as soon as he hangs up, an assassin sent by Shin-jin lunges from the shadows, wrestling with him to snatch the briefcase. A knife flashes, and Han Young is wounded in the hand. In the heat of the struggle, Han Young gets a clear look at his attacker's face and is frozen with shock. This is the exact same man who murdered him in his previous life. Seizing a moment of the assassin's hesitation, Han Young knocks the knife away and kicks the briefcase in the opposite direction as a decoy. As the killer lunges for it, Han Young quickly reels the case back in, hops into his car, and peels away. At that moment, he confirms his suspicion. The mastermind behind the ledger is none other than Chief Justice Shin-jin. Without losing a second, Han Young meets Na-yeon and has her photograph every single page of the ledger as a backup. He warns her that if the list isn't fully published for any reason, she must be the one to expose the truth. Just after leaving her, Han Young gets a call for a private meeting from criminal judge Jin Han. Meanwhile, the assassin reports back to Shin-jin that Han Young found the ledger at a scrapyard, specifically, the one owned by Han Young's own family. Shin-jin pauses, deep in thought, and orders a temporary retreat. He wants to see if he can actually recruit Han Young instead of killing him. Following Shinjin's orders, Judge Jin Han approaches Han Young with a tempting offer, a transfer to the prestigious Seoul court in exchange for the ledger. But Han Young remembers his past life. He remembers being a slave to power and the tragic end it brought him. He flatly refuses. Instead, he hands the ledger over to Isuk, trusting that a man of his integrity will protect it. When Judge Kim reports that Han Young won't budge, Shinjin's headache grows, but he still orders them to keep trying to pull him over to their side. Soon after, Shinjin follows a former president to a clandestine meeting where the country's most powerful figures are secretly shifting the gears of power. There, lawmaker Gu is appointed as the new Minister of Justice. After the meeting, the former president hands Shinjin a list containing confidential information on everyone in attendance, ordering him to use it well. The next day, Isuk leads Han Young into a high-profile press conference. In front of a sea of cameras, Han Young reads every name in the ledger. When a furious Judge Kim later corners him to demand answers, Han Young is ready with a perfect cover story. He claims he noticed a former law school classmate on the list, someone who used to mock his family's scrapyard business. He tells Kim he only released the list as a petty act of personal revenge, and the rest of the names just came along for the ride. This petty excuse is so believable that Kim buys it hook, line, and sinker, reporting it back to Shinjin. Shinjin now believes that Han Young isn't a loyal follower of Isuk after all. He just used Isuk to get his revenge. This makes Shinjin even more eager to recruit Han Young, though he tells Kim to give him a stern warning to keep him obedient. Later, the former president berates Shinjin mercilessly. It turns out that the USB Shinjin submitted only contained half the list. He had tried to hoard the other half for his own leverage, but his scheme was exposed. In a fit of rage, the former president stabs Shinjin repeatedly with a pen. Seeing that Shinjin is still useful, he spares his life but leaves him with a chilling warning. He must properly prepare for Lawmaker Gu's upcoming confirmation hearing. Lawmaker Gu makes no effort to hide his contempt for Shinjin, openly mocking him for growing up in a red light district. Shinjin swallows the humiliation, but inside, his hunger for power burns more fiercely than ever. To eliminate any loose ends, Shinjin orders his assassin to kill Director Lee. At the hospital, the assassin drags Lee to the rooftop, forces a fake suicide note, where Lee takes the blame for everything, and pushes him off the edge. Han Young secretly laments the fact that Shinjin was able to cut off his own weakness so efficiently. On the flip side, because Isuk was the one who exposed the ledger, his path to the Supreme Court is now completely dead. Meanwhile, Jong-sik complains to Han Young that he thought they were moving to Seoul, so his wife already sold their house. Now he has no idea how to break the bad news to her. While Jong-sik is outside calling his wife, he is suddenly struck by a motorcycle. Han Young rushes to his aid, but the motorcycle turns around and charges at them again. Han Young sees clearly that the rider is the assassin, and he immediately realizes this is a direct warning from Shinjin because of the ledger. At the hospital, Jong-sik mentions that the rider looked familiar, as if he were a former defendant Jong-sik had once sentenced. Soon after, Chief Justice Shinjin calls for a private meeting with Han Young. Sensing that Shinjin finally recognizes his value, Han Young agrees immediately. Shinjin fakes praise for Han Young's role in exposing the ledger, claiming he was just waiting for the right moment to act. Han Young recalls an interview from his past life where Shinjin claimed to be an orphan from poverty. He strategically plays along, telling a fake story about his own poor upbringing and how his friends looked down on him. As expected, Shinjin seems deeply empathetic. Han Young takes it a step further, faking a sneer at Isuk for being too obsessed with a noble reputation, which ruined his career. He claims that he, however, knows how to use people to climb the ladder. He pledges his total loyalty, asserting that Shinjin is the only man who can lead him. Shinjin is delighted and hands him a mission. Within 2 weeks, he must ensure Lawmaker Gu fails his confirmation hearing for Minister of Justice. Han Young agrees without a moment's hesitation. While Han Young is playing the part of the loyal soldier to get close to Shinjin for revenge, Prosecutor Jin-a's investigation hits a brick wall. New documents provided by her superiors perfectly match the internal police records, allowing the corporate director to be released and acquitted. A helpless Jin-a can only hold her father's hand at his hospital bed, promising him she won't give up. The next day, to fulfill Shinjin's order, Han Young contacts his best friend Jong-ho to dig into Lawmaker Gu's background. Jong-ho is a bit nervous when he finds out Gu is about to become the Minister of Justice, but out of loyalty to his friend, he reluctantly agrees. While Han Young is looking for a way to sabotage Gu, the military service scandal explodes nationwide, and several high-ranking officials are arrested. The newly appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is a man of integrity. He holds Isuk in high regard and soon transfers him to the Seoul Court. Isuk breaks the news to Han Young and Jong Sik, telling them they're both coming with him to Seoul. Han Young remembers that, in his past life, Lawmaker Gu's daughter was once embroiled in a drug trafficking scandal, a fatal weakness he can use to destroy her father. Returning to Seoul, the place where his life was once unjustly taken, Han Young decides to start his revenge with his former father-in-law, the head of the powerful law firm. If he were just a servant in that firm in his past life, in this life, Han Young will be the one to decide everyone's fate. Meeting with Seon Cheol, Han Young proposes bringing the former prosecutor general Jun Ho into Hinal law firm as a consultant. In exchange, he only asks Seon Cheol to assign a supporting lawyer to Se-hee. He knows that, in the family firm, Se-hee is treated like a trophy daughter with no real staff or authority. Realizing what's happening, Se-hee quickly pulls Han Young away. Se-hee maintains her usual persona, a bratty, sassy socialite, grumbling and complaining the entire way. But deep down, her heart is actually starting to flutter because of Han Young's unexpected moves. Watching her now, so vibrant and full of life, Han Young can't help but compare her to the cold, distant wife she was in his past life. These haunting memories overlap with the present, filling him with a warmth that is also tinged with a sharp, stinging pain. The next day, Han Young arrives at the Seoul court for his new assignment. The moment he steps into the lobby, he comes face to face with prosecutor Jin-ae. Out of habit, he's about to raise his hand to greet her, but he quickly hits the brakes, remembering that in this timeline, they've never actually met. Just then, he spots Yoon Hyuk trailing behind. Han Young turns and greets his friend instead. As it turns out, Yoon Hyuk was also transferred to the Seoul court by Shin Jin under the guise of support, but his real job is to act as a spy and keep a close eye on Han Young. After the greeting, Han Young goes straight to Shin Jin's office. He proposes a cutthroat plan: use the former prosecutor general Jun Ho to trap Lawmaker Gu. He points out that both Jun Ho's son and Lawmaker Gu's daughter are drug addicts, and they can strike at Gu's daughter right here in Korea first. Shin Jin listens, nodding with a look of pure admiration in his eyes. When he asks Han Young what he wants in return, Han Young says he wants Jun Ho to become a consultant for the law firm, which will help Han Young step by step to become Seon Cheol's son-in-law. Shin Jin loves the idea, completely buying into Han Young's ambitious social climber act. As Han Young leaves the office, he's spotted by Jong Sik. Jong Sik freezes, his mind racing with suspicion. Why on earth is Han Young associated with the notorious Shin Jin, and whose side is he actually on? Just moments ago, Jong Sik and Isuk had called a meeting for all the presiding judges, but every single judge there took orders from Shin Jin. They didn't even try to hide their contempt for Isuk, who had just taken office. Jong Sik decides he needs to confront Han Young and demand answers, but before he can, he's interrupted by a call from Isuk. Isuk summons both Jong Sik and Han Young for a meeting. This time, he hands Han Young a massive case that's currently shocking the public: the sinkhole case. It's a political landmine involving urban planning, interest groups, and overlapping layers of administrative negligence. Even though it's a nightmare case, Han Young accepts it immediately. He already knows from Jong Ho's intel that Lawmaker Gu is secretly in bed with the district chief of that area. This sinkhole is the perfect opportunity to dig up the dirt and take Gu down. As he leaves, Han Young calls Se-hee to meet. He needs to discuss the next steps of the plan involving Jun Ho. While waiting for her, he quietly sifts through his memories of the sinkhole. In his past life, a road had suddenly collapsed into a massive, gaping hole, swallowing a car and killing the driver instantly. Many others were severely injured, sending shockwaves through the country. The investigation eventually proved it was caused by a construction company cutting corners and embezzling materials. The kicker? The real owner behind that construction firm was none other than the district chief himself. Not long after, the prosecution indicted the chief. But strangely, from the second trial onward, he somehow won every single civil lawsuit related to the casualties from the sinkhole. Back in the present, Yoon Hyuk can't hide his joy at seeing Han Young get stuck with such a difficult, career-ending case. But a second later, his face drops and he turns sour with jealousy when he sees a beautiful woman, Se-hee, approaching Han Young. Han Young shifts his plan into high gear. He asks Se-hee to contact her law firm's U.S. branch to investigate the former prosecutor general Jun Ho's son, specifically looking for evidence of drug use. Meanwhile, Han Young sends his muscle, Jong Ho, to the high-end nightclub that Lawmaker Gu's daughter frequents. Jong Ho goes undercover, tailing her into a private room where he catches her red-handed using illegal substances. He captures everything on high-definition video and photos, undeniable proof. The moment he has the visuals, Han Young sends them to Jun Ho with a cryptic, chilling message: "Your son in America and Lawmaker Gu's daughter are both chasing the same high." Immediately after hitting send, Han Young demands a face-to-face meeting. At the meeting, Han Young takes the physical evidence from Jong Ho and slams it onto the table right in front of Jun Ho. He demands an emergency arrest warrant for Gu's daughter. When Jun Ho hesitates, Han Young gives Se-hee the signal. Right there in the room, she puts her US lawyer on speakerphone. The lawyer confirms that just last night, they captured photos of Jun Ho's son using drugs. Hearing this, Jun Ho turns ghost white. He realizes he's been backed into a corner and finally accepts Han Young's demands. But Han Young isn't finished. He pushes even further, presenting evidence of lawmaker Gu taking bribes and ordering Jun Ho to use this drug scandal as the fuse to blow Gu's entire career apart. Jun Ho, who actually has a shred of integrity left, feels a bit of relief knowing that Gu is truly a corrupt criminal who deserves to go down. When news breaks that Jun Ho has officially joined Hina law firm as a consultant, Se-hee is ecstatic. She invites Han Young out for a celebratory drink. But Han Young plays it cool, claiming he's too busy and suggesting next time. Se-hee is left visibly frustrated and disappointed. Leaving the city behind, Han Young returns to his mother's scrapyard. As soon as he arrives, he finds Na Young and her grandmother in the middle of a heated argument. They even drag Han Young in to act as the judge. It turns out Na Young can't stand seeing her grandmother work so hard collecting scrap just to support her, so she wants to find a part-time job. The grandmother, however, is dead set against it, wanting Na Young to focus entirely on her studies. Han Young steps in with a perfect compromise. He has Jong Ho arrange a part-time job for Na Young at a convenience store. She'll work only 4 days a week, leaving the rest of her time for tutoring and school. It's a win-win that leaves everyone happy. The grandmother can't thank Han Young enough. And Jong Ho is genuinely glad to see a good man like Han Young sitting on the judge's bench. But inside, Han Young is tormented. He thinks to himself that he's actually a piece of trash judge. He can never shake the memory that in his previous life, Na Young died specifically because of his corrupt verdict. The thought feels like a physical weight crushing his chest. The next day, reporter Na Young starts interviewing victims of the sinkhole disaster. She meets the father of the only person who died in the accident. The old man sits silently before the camera, a broken man. He has watched the people responsible for the tragedy escape punishment over and over again. Now, he has nothing left to do but stand in front of the government headquarters every day with a protest sign. While Na Young is talking to the old man, the district chief's car pulls up. The protesters immediately swarm the vehicle, shouting and jeering, causing the panicked district chief to flee the scene. Sick of being besieged by protesters every day, he calls his lawyer and starts screaming at her. That lawyer happens to be Hana, Se-hee's oldest sister. Using the slow progress of the case as an excuse, the district chief demands that Han Young be removed from the trial. He then orders his goons to begin forceful mediation, essentially bullying the victims' families into settling. Hana is disgusted by his thuggish behavior, but as she tries to keep her cool, her subordinate reminds her of a dark truth. The district chief started out in the mob, handling all the dirty work for powerful congressmen. Turns out that the district chief didn't just climb the political ladder with votes, he climbed it with blood. Backed by powerful figures, he rose from the underworld to his current position. Hana, Se-hee's older sister, immediately realizes his endgame. He's not just forcing a settlement. He's setting a trap to create a violent conflict with the grieving families. He wants to flip the public narrative and blame the victims for the chaos. Hana asks Se-hee to secure a favorable ruling from Han Young to protect their law firm's interests and stop the chief's reckless plan. Meanwhile, Se-hee is losing her mind waiting for Han Young to call. He keeps playing the maybe next time card, and she's had enough. Using the case as an excuse, she corners Han Young and forces him to go to dinner with her. But just as they are together, the reporter Na Young shows up. She wants to talk to Han Young privately about the sinkhole victims. Se-hee's jealousy flares up instantly. She clings tightly to Han Young's arm as if staking a claim, then casually drops a bombshell. Her family's law firm is defending the district chief. Na Young, seeing their intimacy and hearing that news, immediately assumes Han Young has sold his soul to the corrupt chief. She leaves in a fit of disappointment. Before she goes, Han Young warns Se-hee to stay far away from the sinkhole case. He tells her to tell her sister that both the district chief and the congressman backing him are going to be arrested sooner or later. However, the airhead Se-hee gives a vague report to Hana, simply saying she discussed it with Han Young. This leads Hana to believe Han Young is now on their side and will help them win. Han Young chases after Na Young to warn her that the district chief is a dangerous former gangster, but she's too hurt and disillusioned to listen. Han Young then recalls a news report from his past life. Na Young was once brutally beaten while visiting a victim's home. He immediately calls Jong Ho to head to the scene for backup. At the victim's house, the chief's thugs are terrorizing the parents of the deceased. One thug sneers with pure malice, telling them that their son's death was actually karma that cleared their own bad luck. Enraged, the old father grabs a knife, but the thug just laughs and dares the old man to stab him. Suddenly, the mother cracks a heavy object over the thug's head, drawing blood. The thug isn't scared, he's happy. He now has leverage. He calls the district chief to say the deal is done. He tells the parents they can either sign the settlement or the mother will go to prison for aggravated assault. Just as the old man is about to break, Jong-ho storms in and knocks the thug unconscious with a single blow. When Na-yeon arrives, she finds that Jong-ho has already taken the thug and the father to safety. Somewhere else on a dark road, Han-young is wearing a mask, driving his car to intercept the district chief. He forces the chief's car off the road. A while later, the chief wakes up groggy to a terrifying sight. Han-young is operating a massive excavator, driving it straight toward him. Before he can even scream, Jong-ho appears and kicks the chief into a deep, pre-dug pit. Jong-ho brings the old father to the edge of the pit to decide the chief's fate. The father is consumed by the memory of watching his son being swallowed by the sinkhole, unable to save him. His eyes turn blood red with grief. He demands the chief pay with his life. Han-young, acting as a judge for the last time in this darkness, lifts a massive boulder with the excavator. I sentence the district chief to death. The boulder drops, swallowing the man who once thought he was above the law. Justice has finally been served. At the absolute climax of the scene, the old man suddenly screams for Han-young to stop. He argues that the district chief hasn't even apologized to his son yet. He believes that if the man dies now, his son's injustice will remain buried forever. The chief cannot be allowed to die such an easy death. Once he's released, the chief immediately goes into a rage, ordering his goons to hunt down and capture the masked men who kidnapped him. But before he can even start his search, he gets a call from a powerful congressman. The politician is furious that the old man is still protesting and orders the chief to use extreme measures to shut him up once and for all. The next day, the chief's henchmen return to the old man's house, expecting another fight. To their absolute shock, the old man agrees to a settlement immediately. Little do they know, this was Han-young's plan. He had advised the old man to take the deal for now, promising that he would personally expose the chief's every crime in court and drag him to justice. Armed with the signed settlement, the chief excitedly reports back to the congressman, completely oblivious to the fact that his world is about to crumble. Meanwhile, a criminal judge meets with Shin-jin. He has finally dug up Han-young's true identity. He reveals that when Han-young was in the 12th grade, his father was sentenced to 18 months in prison after a clash with security guards. Shin-jin is stunned. He vividly remembers that trial because he was one of the 3 judges who handed down that very sentence. Shin-jin begins to realize the terrifying possibility. Han-young didn't approach him to be an ally. He approached him for revenge. Shin-jin invites Han-young to lunch to test him. He asks why Han-young hasn't moved against lawmaker Gu yet to stop him from becoming the Minister of Justice. Han-young calmly explains that he has already handled the prosecutor general and is just waiting for the hearing day to strike. Shin-jin seizes the moment to ask point-blank, "Why are you following my orders without asking for anything in return? What is your real goal?" He lets it slip that he knows about Han-young's father. Han-young freezes for a split second but recovers instantly. He softly replies that everything is in the past. But his calm demeanor only fuels Shin-jin's suspicion. To make matters worse, Han-young's boss spots him meeting with Shin-jin and immediately reports it to the righteous Isuk. Isuk refuses to believe Han-young is a traitor. He suspects Han-young is being blackmailed and offers to help settle any personal issues. Han-young remains tight-lipped. He has a bigger target in sight. Han-young calls the former prosecutor general and tells him to hand the lawmaker Gu case to the steel prosecutor, Jin-ae. He knows she's the only one with the guts to take down a potential minister of justice. That night, Jin-ae's boss hands her a massive file of evidence against Gu, acting like he's doing her a favor. Jin-ae sees right through the act. She knows she's being used as a weapon to do the dirty work. While Jin-ae is wrestling with the weight of the case, she gets a dinner invite from Cheol-woo. On her way to the restaurant, a stranger shoves an envelope into her hand. She doesn't have time to look at it before she walks into the restaurant and finds Cheol-woo with a surprise guest, Han-young. Han-young used his connection with Cheol-woo just to get this meeting. He immediately lays his cards on the table, revealing he knows she has the evidence to arrest the future Minister of Justice. Feeling manipulated and used as a pawn by everyone around her, Jin-ae gets up to leave in a rage. But then, Han-young reaches out and opens the mysterious envelope he just handed her. Inside the envelope is a gift that Jang specifically prepared for Jin-ae, and it is beyond disturbing. He had painstakingly handwritten the words "I love you" in English, then smeared the entire paper in blood. Han-young knows that Jin-ae has been living under constant threat from this psychopath. He makes her a deal. Jean A will handle the arrest of lawmaker Gu's daughter for drug use, while he will provide the leverage she needs to finally take down Zhang. Jean A accepts the proposal. Later, she confronts Zhang in a display of sheer mental warfare. She sits before him, provocatively devouring Teat Hio, pig blood, with a chilling intensity. She even pours blood into her wine glass and downs it in one breath, never taking her eyes off him. Zhang is genuinely rattled, muttering that she's a complete crazy woman. However, he soon discovers her weak point. Almost her entire salary goes toward caring for her critically ill father in the hospital. He immediately orders his men to find a way to silence her with a massive bribe. With the lawmaker Gu situation moving, Han Young turns his focus back to the sinkhole case. The trial is only days away. He reaches out to the reporter, Na Yun, and suggests she interview the other victims, specifically a man who lost his dog in the sinkhole and a snack shop owner who worked right next to the site. Na Yun doesn't fully grasp his plan yet, but she follows his lead. The day of the trial arrives. The courtroom is tense. The corrupt district chief stands confident, presenting signed settlement papers from all 12 victims. Under the law, this mediation should result in an immediate not guilty verdict. But just as Han Young is about to rule, the victim's lawyer stands up with a bombshell. New video evidence. The video shows the chief's thugs using brutal violence to force the man who lost his dog into signing the settlement. This was the footage Na Yun captured during her interviews. The chief's defense lawyer tries to pivot, claiming this was just an isolated act by a rogue employee and shouldn't invalidate the other settlements. But the lawyer isn't done. He presents a second testimony from the snack shop owner. She reveals that before the sinkhole even happened, she had reported visible cracks in the road to the district administration, but her warnings were completely ignored. After the disaster, the chief's men threatened her into silence. With the evidence undeniable, Han Young strikes. He rules that the violence used by the chief's subordinates constitutes a serious criminal offense. He pauses the sinkhole trial until the criminal cases are resolved. Furthermore, he orders the prosecution to investigate the district chief personally to find out exactly why he was so desperate to force these settlements and what he is trying to hide. When the news reaches Xinjin, he realizes the situation is spiraling out of control. The prosecutor Han Young assigned to the investigation happens to be an old colleague of Xinjin's, someone he once worked with on a serial killer case. This is bad news. If the chief is interrogated, it will lead the police straight to lawmaker Gu, and eventually to the secret 20 billion won-slush fund Xinjin and his cronies received from the congressman. At this moment, Xinjin finally has 100% confirmation. Han Young is a traitor who is actively trying to destroy them. That night, Xinjin calls a secret meeting with lawmaker Gu. He delivers a cold, final order: handle the district chief. He warns Gu that if the chief snaps and talks, none of them will make it out alive. The lawmaker nods obediently, knowing exactly what needs to be done. Han Young pays a visit to Xianqiol's law firm, playing the role of a helpless, concerned ally. He sighs and tells Xianqiol that the public pressure was so intense he had no choice but to show the footage of the victims being threatened in court. He warns Xianqiol that if he had suppressed the evidence, the media would have immediately suspected the shady connection between the judge and the law firm. Then, he drops the real bomb. The district chief's secret bribe scandal is about to be exposed to the light. Han Young subtly suggests that if the law firm cuts ties with the chief now, they can avoid being dragged down with him. Xianqiol, falling for the act, thanks Han Young for the heads up, and his anger over the sinkhole case completely vanishes. After leaving the office, Han Young takes Seihi out for beef tripe. He casually mentions that he once brought someone familiar to this very spot. Seihi's jealousy flares up instantly, and she demands to know if it was a girl. Han Young remains silent, leaving her fuming. Little does she know that the person he was talking about was her in his past life. Meanwhile, prosecutor Cheol Woo follows Han Young's lead and interrogates the district chief. He plants a seed of doubt, whispering that the congressman will inevitably discard him like a piece of trash. He suggests the chief should cooperate before he's left for dead. Then, in a calculated move to create chaos, Cheol Woo simply lets the chief go. As soon as the chief steps out, the congressman calls, demanding to know if he talked to the prosecution. He barks orders for the chief to keep his mouth shut. Enraged at being treated like a dog, the chief starts to crack. The relationship is crumbling, exactly as Han Young planned. That night, the congressman prepares a passport for the chief and tells him to flee the country and hide for a while. Fearing this is a one-way trip to a shallow grave, the chief secretly steals a USB containing the congressman's black money records to use as leverage. He and his men head to the harbor, waiting for a boat inside a small bookstore at the dock. But Zhang Ho, with his eyes everywhere, discovers the escape plan and alerts Han Young. Han Young rushes to the bookstore, only to find a terrifying scene. A professional assassin is already there, strangling the district chief. Han Young lunges forward, pulling the assassin off his victim, and a brutal struggle ensues. He throws himself into the fight against the man who killed him in his past life. However, Han Young is no fighter and is quickly overpowered. Just as the assassin is about to finish him off, Jong Ho bursts in and saves his life. Seeing the tide turn, the assassin manages to escape into the night. Han Young leaves the unconscious district chief right in front of the police station. More importantly, he finds the USB on the chief's body, the ultimate proof of the congressman's illegal slush funds. He hands it over to Cheol Woo to begin the official investigation. When the news of the failed assassination reaches Shinjin, he is told that the person who saved the chief seemed to know him. The criminal judge helping Shinjin begins to suspect Han Young. Every time he is involved, things go wrong. Even the previous military draft scandal was exposed because of him. Shinjin's face darkens. He realizes the prosecutor investigating the chief is Han Young's best friend. The suspicion is no longer a guess, it's a certainty. Not long after, Cheol Woo officially begins the investigation. Having survived an assassination attempt by his own boss, the district chief stops hiding. He sings like a canary, confessing everything about the secret payments he made to the congressman. With the evidence in hand, Cheol Woo leads a raid on the congressman's office. The congressman knows his reign is over. Desperate, he calls Cheol Woo, begging for a private meeting. Cheol Woo tips off Han Young before heading out. Han Young immediately smells a rat. This is trap written all over it, so he decides to tail his friend. But he doesn't even make it halfway before his boss calls, demanding Han Young report to his office immediately. Han Young has no choice but to divert and meet Shinjin first. Meanwhile, Cheol Woo arrives at the meeting spot, and the sight inside is a nightmare. The congressman has already been murdered. Just as he moves to check the pulse, a shadow lunges from the darkness. A man in black wraps a cord around Cheol Woo's neck, squeezing the life out of him. On the other side of town, Han Young is face-to-face with Shinjin. Today is the day of the confirmation hearing for lawmaker Gu to become the Minister of Justice. Shinjin wants Han Young by his side to witness Gu's total destruction. But Han Young has already pulled the trigger. Following Han Young's tip, prosecutor Jin raids a high-end club and catches Gu's daughter red-handed with drugs. The arrest is captured perfectly by the reporter Nayeon, whom Han Young had also tipped off. The news hits the internet like a tidal wave. In an instant, Gu's political career is dead on arrival. Shinjin watches with a satisfied smirk, but then he casually drops a chilling question. By the way, do you know prosecutor Cheol Woo? He mentions that the congressman just called to meet Cheol Woo. That one comment sends a jolt of lightning through Han Young. He realizes Shinjin knows everything. He suddenly understands the gravity of the situation. This isn't just a meeting. It's a setup to frame Cheol Woo for the congressman's murder. While Han Young's mind is racing to find a way to save his friend, Shinjin turns the heat up. He demands to know Han Young's true motive for getting close to him. Han Young's brain works at 100 miles per hour. He blabs out a lie. His goal is to destroy a man named Huang, the judge who presided over his father's case years ago. He claims he's using Shinjin's power for personal revenge, to fully erase Shinjin's suspicion. Han Young cleverly mentions that he knows Shinjin was also an associate judge on that case, but as a subordinate, he had no power to change Huang's verdict. This strokes Shinjin's ego perfectly. He buys it. He makes a call to his assassin to stand down, then leads Han Young to a secret restaurant for a victory meal. This isn't just any restaurant. It's the place where Shinjin conducts his most shadow-shrouded political deals. He usually only brings his most trusted inner circle here. Shinjin introduces Han Young to the owner, a woman who turns out to be the Kizayang, brothel hostess, who took him in when he was a starving orphan wandering the streets. By sharing this vulnerable backstory, Shinjin is trying to bind Han Young to him. He then drops some inside info. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is about to be replaced. Once the dust settles, he promises to hand Judge Huang over to Han Young to do with as he pleases. As soon as he can get away, Han Young rushes to find Cheol Woo. He finds his friend alive and nearly collapses with relief. It turns out the assassin had staged the congressman's death as a suicide, leaving a note claiming he ended it all out of guilt. The trail is cold, and the prosecution's investigation is dead in the water. Han Young knows it's nearly impossible to prove Shinjin was the puppet master for now, so he turns his attention back to the district chief to finally put the sinkhole case to bed. Han Young corners the district chief with a cold ultimatum. At the upcoming trial, the chief must confess to everything, especially the part where he used violence to force the victims into settlements. If he refuses, Han Young threatens to leak the records of the chief managing the congressman's black money. Han Young makes it clear. Once that secret is out, the powerful figures backing the congressman will hunt the chief down and silence him forever. Understanding the gravity of the situation, the terrified chief agrees to every single demand. When the sinkhole case finally reaches its verdict, the gavel drops hard. The district chief is sentenced to 10 years in prison. His construction company is also exposed for massive embezzlement and systemic bribery. As the news spreads, citizens gather at the site of the sinkhole to hold a spontaneous memorial for the lost souls. Justice has been served, the villains are punished, and the old father who lost his son finally finds a sense of peace. But as one fire is put out, another is ignited. Inside a heavily guarded secret villa, the shadow cabinet led by the former president is meeting to choose the next chief justice. Shin Jin, playing the ultimate kingmaker, nominates Judge Huang as the successor. The former president gives his silent approval. As the meeting breaks, lawmaker Gu, who has lost everything, is found groveling on the floor, waiting for the former president to emerge. Shin Jin walks up to him with a look of pure disgust. He tells Gu that his daughter will be released with a suspended sentence. But in exchange, Gu must abandon all political ambitions. When Gu desperately tries to push past him to see the president, Shin Jin stops him with a psychological blow. He asks Gu if he's ever wondered why his wife changes drivers so often. He throws a stack of photos onto the floor, intimate, scandalous pictures of Gu's wife with various drivers. Shin Jin then pulls out the very pen Gu once used to humiliate him and presses it into Gu's face. He tells Gu he is now a dog. He will bark when told and go where he is sent. Only then will his family and his seat in Congress be protected. With a chilling laugh, Shin Jin leaves him broken on the ground. Soon after, a massive smear campaign orchestrated by Shin Jin floods the internet, attacking the current Chief Justice. Shin Jin's lackey, the criminal judge, promises to have the Chief Justice removed within a month. While Shin Jin nods along, it's clear he doesn't truly value the lackey. The man he truly wants to mold and entrust with power is Han Young. Because of this, Shin Jin brings only Han Young to a private dinner with Judge Huang. However, the criminal judge is still suspicious. He tracks down Sang Jin, Han Young's friend, to dig for dirt. Sang Jin claims he knows nothing, only mentioning that Han Young has been seen entering Isuk's office multiple times for unknown reasons. This news sends the criminal judge into a jealous rage. That evening, during dinner with Huang, Shin Jin promises the judge that he will be the next Chief Justice. The temptation is overwhelming, but Huang is terrified he'll end up being attacked and removed just like the current one. Shin Jin reassures him, reminding Huang that he was once his subordinate and would never let that happen. Relieved and greedy for power, Huang drinks a celebratory toast with Shin Jin. But the real twist comes after Huang leaves. Shin Jin walks over to a hidden door and opens it, revealing Han Young, who has been eavesdropping on the entire conversation. Shin Jin doesn't explain why he's helping Huang. Instead, he hands Han Young a thick envelope, a kill file containing enough evidence to destroy Huang's career forever. Shin Jin smiles and lays out a twisted challenge. It's a race. He wants to see if he can successfully install Huang as the Chief Justice before Han Young can use that evidence to tear him down. As soon as the evidence is in his hands, Han Young passes it to his loyal friend, Jong Ho, to dig deeper. When Jong Ho cracks open the envelope, he finds a total bombshell: the recruitment records for a major construction company. It's a classic case of high-level nepotism. Judge Huang's son had ranked dead last in the written exam, yet somehow, he magically placed first in the interview and secured the job. The fix was in, and Han Young now has the receipts to prove it. The next day, Han Young follows his superior to meet with the righteous Isuk to report on the conclusion of the district chief's case. During the conversation, the mood shifts. Isuk gives a subtle look to Han Young's superior, who then asks the burning question: "Why have you been getting so close to the notorious and corrupt Shin Jin lately?" Han Young doesn't even try to hide it. He nods calmly, admitting that he's working with Shin Jin because the man promised to grant his deepest wish once a specific task is finished. Han Young even goes as far as saying he has already given Shin Jin exactly what he wanted, though he refuses to reveal what that something actually was. Isuk is absolutely livid. Feeling a profound sense of betrayal, he tells Han Young that their relationship and any loyalty between them ends right here, right now. Han Young doesn't argue. He just stands up and walks out in total silence. But the real twist is just beginning. Han Young heads straight to the powerful Hina law firm to meet with Sian Cheol. As he walks through the doors, a chilling thought crosses his mind, one that changes everything we thought we knew. This is it, he thinks. This is my one and only chance to finally hunt down the white fox of the judicial world, Isuk himself. A few days ago, Shin Jin handed Han Young the kill file containing evidence of Judge Huang's son's crimes. It was a twisted challenge. Shin Jin wanted to see if he could install Huang as the Chief Justice before Han Young could destroy him. The next day, Han Young meets with the investigative reporter. He hands her the scoop on Huang's son, specifically how the judge used his influence to secure a high-ranking position for his son at a major construction company. The reporter is stunned. She can't help but ask, "Who are you exactly? How do you have access to all these high-level secrets?" Han Young stays silent, and seeing his cold resolve, she knows better than to push for more. After using the media to dismantle Huang, Han Young moves to his next objective, making the upright Isuk the new Chief Justice. To pull this off, he takes Se-hee to see her father, Seon-cheol. He asks for the law firm's help in lobbying the president to appoint Isuk. In return, a grateful Isuk would join the firm as a senior consultant. Han Young knows from his past life that Seon-cheol has always obsessed over recruiting Isuk, but was rejected every time. Seon-cheol is skeptical at first. He doesn't believe the current Chief Justice will be removed so easily. But Han Young reveals the inside track. Shin-jin is already clearing the way by getting rid of the incumbent to make room for Huang. But Han Young is going to make sure Huang falls first, leaving the seat wide open for Isuk. Thinking about having both the former prosecutor general and a future chief justice as consultants, Seon-cheol is practically beaming with greed. He immediately starts preparing the presidential nomination files for Isuk. As Han Young leaves the office, he can't shake a nagging feeling. Everything is going too smoothly. He still doesn't understand why Shin-jin would hand him the very evidence needed to destroy the man he's supposedly promoting. He suspects Shin-jin's game is far more dangerous than it looks. Very quickly, the reporter's story breaks. Huang becomes the nation's most hated man overnight. In a panic, he begs Shin-jin for help. Shin-jin, ever the manipulator, calmly assures him he will handle it. Meanwhile, Han Young meets with Isuk. He reveals that the current Chief Justice is on his way out and that Shin-jin is trying to install a puppet like Huang. He urges Isuk to take the position himself, pleading with him not to let parasites like Shin-jin and Huang continue to poison the justice system. In that moment, Isuk finally understands the truth. Han Young never sold his soul. He was acting as a double agent to strike from the inside. That night, Seon-cheol meets with Isuk, offering the law firm's lobbying power to secure his presidential nomination in exchange for a consultant role. For the first time, the incorruptible Isuk begins to waver. Back in the field, Prosecutor Jin-ae approaches Han Young. She's ready to risk everything to arrest Jang, the assassin. Seeing her fierce determination, Han Young finally reveals his true target, Shin-jin, the man who manipulates the entire prosecution and is the real power behind the killer. As they talk, they arrive at Han Young's parents' scrapyard. When Jin-ae realizes who owns the place, she is frozen in shock. It turns out that back when she was a student, Han Young's parents had helped her during a difficult time. Even more devastating, her own father had later been manipulated by Jang to frame Han Young's father, leading to his imprisonment. Overwhelmed with guilt and a desire for justice, Jin-ae makes a blood pact with Han Young. Han Young tells Jin-ae that it's time to put on a high-stakes performance to smoke out Shin-jin's true intentions. He sets his sights on another one of Shin-jin's inner circle, a man known simply as the man with glasses. From his knowledge of the future, Han Young knows this man is about to face massive losses in the stock market and is desperate for cash to pay for his daughter's tuition abroad. He has Jin-ae stage a confidential phone call right in front of the man with glasses. She loudly discusses a secret prosecution plan to bust a major crypto scammer in 3 months. She mentions that the scammer lures people in with insanely high interest rates, and she plans to dump a massive amount of money into it now, harvest the high returns, and pull out just before the arrest. After Jin-ae plants the seed of greed, Han Young meets with Cheol-woo. He tells him point-blank that he's going after Shin-jin, the very man who once sent an assassin to kill Cheol-woo. Fueled by a burning sense of justice and personal vendetta, Cheol-woo joins the alliance. Following Han Young's script, Cheol-woo meets the man with glasses at a golf course. He pretends to accidentally let the man see Jin-ae on the phone again. Curiosity gets the better of the lackey, and he asks Cheol-woo about Jin-ae's investment. Cheol-woo plays his part perfectly, explaining that Jin-ae is using the scammer to make a fortune. The logic is simple. The scammer pays out on time for 3 months to lure in more victims. As long as you pull your principal and interest out before the 3-month mark, you're golden. When the man with glasses hears about the 10% monthly interest, his eyes practically turn into dollar signs. To make the scam look 100% legitimate, Han Young has Jong-ho organize a massive, fake global investment conference in a luxury high-rise. He even has Se-hee make a brief appearance to add a face of corporate prestige. The goal is to show the man with glasses that this operation is so huge they can easily afford to pay out returns before they disappear. The cautious lackey starts small, investing 100 million won as a test, but the hook is deep. While reporting to Shin-jin about building a charitable and frugal image for Judge Huang, he can't even hide his giddy smile. As Shin-jin continues to push Huang toward the Chief Justice seat, Han Young officially opens the investigation into Huang's son. Panicked, Huang tries to call Xinjin, but the boss doesn't pick up. Driven to desperation, Huang drives himself to the former president's house to beg for a lifeline. Unbeknownst to him, the reporter Nayan is tailing him every step of the way. At the president's villa, a much darker deal is happening. Zhang, the assassin and fixer, is meeting with the former president. Zhang has prepared 100 billion won in offshore accounts as a bribe. In exchange, the former president agrees to let Zhang nominate the next commissioner of the National Tax Service and the Minister of Commerce. The two old predators share a sinister laugh as they finalize the trade. Only after the deal is done does the president agree to see Huang. He coldly berates the judge, telling him to just shut up and trust Xinjin. As Zhang leaves, he hands over the secret payment to the president's staff. Nayan captures the entire exchange on camera. When she shows the photos to Han Young, he is stunned. He connects the dots between Zhang, Xinjin, and the villa, finally realizing the terrifying truth. The shadow boss standing behind Xinjin is the former president himself. But even as the pieces fall into place, one mystery still haunts Han Young. Why would Xinjin hand him the ammo to destroy Huang while simultaneously trying to promote him? Han Young finally realizes the truth. Promoting Huang to Chief Justice was never Xinjin's actual goal. Now that he knows the former president is the one pulling Xinjin's strings, the puzzle pieces are finally starting to fit together. Meanwhile, the man with glasses, Xinjin's subordinate, hits rock bottom. The stocks he invested in have plummeted and are about to be delisted. The 400 million won he poured in is effectively gone. Right at that moment, his wife calls, screaming about their daughter's tuition fees abroad. Panicked and cornered, he receives a call from the scam company, which is actually Zhang Ho's team. They've just transferred 10 million won in interest to his account. Seeing that profit, he decides to bet everything. He gathers a staggering 3 billion won, every cent he has, and throws it into the scam, hoping to recover all his losses in one go. After making the transfer, he rushes to meet prosecutor Chiol Wu, begging him for a heads-up right before the raid, so he can pull his money out safely. Chiol Wu agrees, playing his part to perfection. The man with glasses then meets the scammer, Zhang Ho in disguise. Suddenly, Jin-A's boss at the prosecution announces an emergency raid on a fraud ring. Jin-A realizes it's Zhang Ho's location and frantically calls Han Young. To save the operation, Han Young pulls a stunt straight out of an action movie. He intentionally rams his car into Jin-A's vehicle, staging a never-ending argument on the road to stall the entire prosecution team. Back at the office, the man with glasses has just handed over the 3 billion won, but is so greedy, he's trying to talk Zhang Ho into reinvesting next month's interest. Zhang Ho is breaking into a cold sweat, looking for an exit, when the sound of the raid finally hits. Jin-A and her boss burst into the office, only to find it completely empty. Not a soul in sight. Chiol Wu appears out of nowhere, berating them for their reckless, unauthorized action. He tells them this was just a temporary office the scammers rented and that they vanished hours ago. Chiol Wu scolds Jin-A for ruining the investigation and then delivers the devastating news to the man with glasses. The lackey, who had just invested 3 billion won, rushes back to find Zhang Ho, but the man is long gone. This was all Han Young's master plan. He had Zhang Ho move to a new office earlier and then placed an anonymous tip about the old location to Jin-A's boss. By having the police raid an empty room, it erased any suspicion the man with glasses might have had about Chiol Wu or Jin-A. He now believes he just had a streak of legendary bad luck. That night, Han Young, Zhang Ho, and the rest of the team gather to celebrate. The successful sting has turned them into a tight-knit squad, ready to take on Xinjin together. The next day, Judge Huang storms into Xinjin's office, demanding to know when his son will be cleared and when he'll finally be made Chief Justice. Xinjin gives him a solemn promise, but with a terrifying price. Huang must hand over a secret file containing records of illegal political funds. This ledger isn't just small change. It contains records of black money involving the former president, the current president, and dozens of powerful congressmen. Xinjin warns Huang, "If you don't hand over the file, I'll still make you Chief Justice, but your son will receive the maximum possible prison sentence." As a dejected Huang leaves, Xinjin summons the man with glasses. He demands to know why the money for Huang's charity foundation, the one used to build a clean public image, has stopped flowing. The man with glasses suddenly collapses to his knees, sobbing and begging for forgiveness. He confesses that he was scammed out of every single penny. He even admits his plan. He had asked prosecutor Chiol Wu to tip him off before the raid, so he could escape with the cash. Xinjin absolutely loses his mind. Driven by pure rage, he lunges at the man with glasses, brutally beating him without mercy. He screams at the subordinate to stay silent and orders him not to involve the prosecution or try to track down the stolen money. knowing that any investigation into the scam would eventually lead the authorities straight back to Shinjin's own dirty laundry. After kicking the man out, Shinjin huddles with his trusted criminal judge. They both suspect that the scam that swallowed 30 billion won was a meticulously planned setup. Aside from the two of them, only Han Young knew about the money. And there's the suspicious connection. Prosecutor Cheol Woo is Han Young's best friend. Shinjin's suspicion of Han Young reaches a fever pitch, and he decides to test him once and for all. He summons Han Young and gives him a mission. Go to Judge Huang, retrieve a specific USB, and hand him a file on Huang's past. When Han Young meets Huang, the old judge is desperate. He knows Han Young is presiding over his son's case and demands a not guilty verdict. Han Young coldly ignores him. Instead, he reveals his plan. He's going to sentence Huang's son to exactly 1 year and 6 months in prison. Why that specific number? Because that was the exact sentence Huang handed down to Han Young's father years ago. Huang loses control and tries to attack Han Young. But the younger man is faster, dropping him with a single powerful punch. Han Young then throws the file Shinjin gave him onto the floor. Inside are records of the secret bribes the assassin Zhang gave to Huang in the past. The very bribes that bought the verdict against Han Young's father. Realizing Han Young is out for blood, Huang's tone shifts to desperate pleading. He promises that once he becomes the Chief Justice, he'll make Han Young's career smooth sailing and compensate him for everything. But Han Young is unshakable. He is determined to strip the judge of his robes and his dignity. That night, a panicked Huang runs to Shinjin. Shinjin reassures him, swearing that no matter how much Han Young threatens him, he will ensure Huang is appointed Chief Justice. Huang has no choice but to put his life in Shinjin's hands. Later, Han Young delivers the USB to Shinjin, maintaining a perfect poker face and claiming he never looked at the contents. Shinjin, eyes full of malice, immediately plugs the USB into his computer. He's using specialized forensic software that can track exactly when a file was last opened and if the drive was accessed by another device. To Shinjin's surprise, the software shows the USB is untouched. For now, Han Young is cleared of suspicion. The two share a drink, chatting like old friends, but Han Young knows he's walking on thin ice. He had outsmarted Shinjin by having the reporter send the USB to a high-level cyber expert who could extract the data without leaving a digital footprint on the drive itself. Han Young knows that to truly take down a monster like Shinjin, he needs a shield even more powerful. He gathers every piece of evidence he's collected on Shinjin's crimes and takes it to the Honorable Isuk. He explains that his entire betrayal was just a deep cover mission to win Shinjin's trust and gather the smoking gun evidence. Isuk is stunned but finally believes him. They've both known Shinjin was corrupt, but no one dared to follow the trail to the end, mostly because everyone feared the big boss in the shadows. Han Young lays out the photos the reporter took at the former president's villa. He makes it clear, Shinjin's ultimate protection is the former president himself. This is a war I can't win alone, Han Young says. He tells Isuk that he must run for Chief Justice. Isuk is deeply moved by Han Young's bravery and resolve. He nods firmly, agreeing to the plan. That night, Isuk meets with the power broker Sean Cheol, demanding his help to secure the presidential nomination. He knows he must take the seat of Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to become the ultimate shield for Han Young. While Han Young is busy consolidating his forces for the final strike against Shinjin, he has no idea that a deadly net is closing in on him. Shinjin's pet criminal judge has made a massive discovery. On the day of the raid on the scammer's den, prosecutor Cheol Woo had called Han Young. He goes straight to the man with glasses and orders a secret investigation. They now strongly suspect that the 30 billion won scam was a trap set by Han Young's crew. With the trial of Huang's son fast approaching, Shinjin summons Han Young for a high-stakes meeting. He slams Huang's USB onto the desk and reveals the terrifying truth. It contains evidence of bribery involving congressmen and both the former and current presidents. Holding this USB is like holding a nuclear detonator over the entire country. Shinjin offers to share this absolute power with Han Young, promising to bring him into the true inner circle, the former president's secret villa. The admission price? Han Young must declare Huang's son not guilty, but Shinjin is a monster who plays both sides. Right after the meeting, he contacts his assassin with a horrific order: kill Huang's son and stage it as a suicide. He wants to use the boy's death to trigger a wave of public sympathy that will propel Huang into the Chief Justice seat. That night, the assassin kidnaps the boy, locks him in a car, and lights a charcoal briquette to suffocate him. The trial begins, but the defendant is nowhere to be found. The reporters are already getting whispers of a tragedy. In the original timeline, the son died, leaving a fake suicide note claiming his innocence. Public opinion flipped instantly. People felt sorry for the grieving father, and Huang was successfully appointed as Chief Justice. But Han Young knows the future, and he's rewriting the script. He and Jong Ho storm the scene and rescue the son just after the assassin leaves. Han Young tells the boy the cold, hard truth. The people you trust want you dead. They want to use your corpse to put your father in power. If you want to live, you have to strike first. Following Han Young's advice, the son holds an emergency press conference. Instead of a suicide note, he gives a full confession, admitting he used his father's power to cheat his way into the construction company. The hall explodes in chaos. Faced with the scandal, Huang has no choice but to resign. With Huang out of power, the prosecution immediately opens an investigation into his past. The truth about him taking bribes from Jiang to frame Han Young's father is finally dragged into the light. The scandal shatters the judiciary's reputation, and the current Chief Justice is forced to step down. In the vacuum of power, Isuk is officially nominated as the next Chief Justice. Han Young has pulled off the impossible. He didn't betray his principles to help Shinjin, yet he somehow won the man's total trust. He is now officially Shinjin's right-hand man, walking directly into the heart of the shadow government at the former president's villa. He follows Shinjin into a secret meeting on a day known as Water Accumulation Day. Han Young is confused, wondering what accumulating water could possibly mean. But as he looks up, his blood runs cold. A group of men dressed in black marches into the room carrying massive, oversized bathtubs. As they line them up, each man shouts out the name of a major South Korean government agency and begins pouring literal mountains of cash into the tubs. All of it was special funding offered to former President Han Young, leaving him stunned and speechless. Han Young is led by Shinjin into the true heart of power in South Korea. There, he witnesses a scene of absolute insanity. Former President Park is using literal bathtubs to collect mountains of black money. During the meeting, Minister Choi of the Land and Infrastructure Department suddenly appears, unveiling a top-secret urban development plan. She reveals that next year, the ministry will build a massive new city. With this insider information, everyone in the room can buy up the land for dirt cheap before the announcement. Once construction begins, they'll all be rolling in billions. The room erupts in applause as they thank Minister Choi for this gift. After the meeting, President Park summons Shinjin and Han Young for a private audience. She's suspicious. Earlier, Judge Huang had warned her that Han Young is the son of the man he wrongfully imprisoned 15 years ago, and that he is definitely out for revenge. Huang warned her that Han Young was the one who forced his son to confess, telling her never to trust him. Park is now questioning Shinjin's motives. Why is he keeping Han Young so close, especially after he was the one who nominated Huang for the Chief Justice seat? Immediately after, Shinjin reveals his true, dark ambition to Han Young. The only reason he brought Han Young to the center of power was to buy his absolute loyalty. Shinjin plans to overthrow the superstitious and greedy President Park and become the master of the country himself, claiming he wants to implement justice according to his own ideals. He wants Han Young to be his most powerful and loyal right-hand man. Han Young smiles and toasts to the plan, but internally he is cursing Shinjin as the ultimate hypocrite. While Han Young is playing this dangerous game with Shinjin, trouble brews elsewhere. Songdae tracks down Cheol-woo with his call history, screaming that he and Han Young teamed up to scam him out of his money. Cheol-woo frantically alerts Han Young, fearing Songdae will rat them out to Shinjin. Han Young decides to strike first. He enlists Seihee's help, promising Songdae his 30 billion won back within a week, while Cheol-woo hands over 5 billion in cash as a weekly interest payment. When Songdae still tries to call Shinjin, Han Young snatches the phone and delivers a cold threat. If he calls, Han Young will transfer the 30 billion directly into his daughter's account. If Shinjin thinks Songdae wasn't scammed but actually embezzled the slush fund for himself, Shinjin will kill him. At that exact moment, Isuk appears and slams a file onto the table. Contains records of every case Songdae took bribes to fix. Under this mountain of blackmail, Songdae finally surrenders. He reports back to Judge Kim, lying that Han Young and Cheol-woo had nothing to do with the scam. To pay Han Young back for his help, Sehee asks for one wish. She wants to go to his parents' house for a home-cooked meal. When Han Young's parents see him bring a woman home for the first time, they immediately assume she's his girlfriend. Watching the bubbly and adorable Sehee, Han Young is hit with a wave of emotion, remembering the cold, treacherous wife she became in his past life. The next day, Prosecutor Jin-ae arrests a bank loan officer for embezzlement. By chance, this man is the one who secretly helped the corrupt CEO Tae-sik secure illegal loans. Han Young recognizes the opportunity and tells Jin-ae to use this man to get the evidence needed to sink Tae-sik for good. Jin-ae confronts the officer, offering him a deal. She won't prosecute him for the embezzlement, but in exchange, he has to do one thing: deliver the head of CEO Tae-sik on a silver platter. Not long after the bank officer is squeezed, he heads back to the office and secretly leaks the files on Tae-sik's illegal loans to prosecutor Jin-ae. With the smoking gun in her hands, Jin-ae prepares for an emergency arrest. But Han Young has a bigger plan. He tells Jin-ae to keep Tae-sik in custody for as long as possible. Meanwhile, he has the reporter Na-yeon leak rumors that Tae-sik's massive slush fund is hidden at a specific bank, making enough noise that the news reaches Tae-sik's ears behind bars. In his past life, Han Young remembered this exact situation, leading to the exposure of 500 billion won in black money. But the bigger fish was Tae-sik's father, Chairman Yong-hyun of S Group, who had trillions of won in illegal funds stashed at the same bank. To prevent the prosecution from tracing the trail back to him, the chairman had originally forced his son to be the fall guy. Back then, Tae-sik took the hit, received a suspended sentence, and the 500 billion was confiscated, but the chairman's main fortune remained untouched. This time, Han Young refuses to let them off that easily. Everything plays out exactly as he predicted. After Tae-sik's arrest, the chairman is in a panic and meets with Shin-jin to beg for help. Shin-jin tells Yong-hyun it's time to cut the lizard's tail. He warns that if the prosecution keeps digging, the 5 trillion won hidden in that bank will be lost, S Group will be crippled, and the former president will lose all faith in them. Shin-jin demands a staggering 1 trillion won to fix the problem, promising to appoint a judge who will give Tae-sik a suspended sentence. That judge? None other than Han Young. Left with no choice, Chairman Yong-hyun agrees to the bribe. When Tae-sik is temporarily released, his father orders him to confess to everything to stop the investigation from going deeper. Tae-sik is absolutely livid but doesn't dare defy his father. He blames Jin-ae for everything and vows to teach her a lesson she'll never forget. That night, Jin-ae's superiors order her to officially indict Tae-sik. She tells Han Young, but he isn't satisfied yet. He needs to expose the chairman's main fund to reach the ultimate targets: Shin-jin and the former president. Han Young knows that taking on the former president is incredibly dangerous. He gathers his team, Jong-ho, Cheol-woo, Na-yeon, and Jin-ae, and tells them the truth. He gives them a chance to walk away if the risk is too high. But the team is fired up. Their blood is boiling, and they are ready for war. Then, Han Young hands Jin-ae a folder. It's the evidence Shin-jin used to blackmail Tae-sik. Photos and records of Tae-sik brutally assaulting Jin-ae's father. Years ago, Jin-ae's father was a hired thug for the S Group, used to beat residents during forced relocations. But Tae-sik eventually turned on him, beating him nearly to death with a baseball bat and forcing him to lie in court, claiming he was attacked by the residents. That lie was what sent Han Young's father to prison. Jin-ae confesses through tears that she knew her father did bad things, but he was still a father who loved her and sacrificed his own body just so she could have a better life. She had studied day and night just to escape that hell, but before she could become a prosecutor, her father was beaten into a coma. He's been in a hospital bed ever since. Han Young realizes that both their fathers were victims of the same monster, and he feels no resentment toward her. While the two of them bond over their shared tragedy, the former president is busy scamming the public. She is using her reputation to front a charity foundation, claiming she is donating her entire fortune to help the needy. The gullible public follows her lead, pouring their own hard-earned money into what is actually a massive money laundering machine. The head of the charity foundation delivers great news to former President Park. Donations are skyrocketing, and they've just pulled in another massive haul of cash. Even Han Young's mother gets caught up in the hype. A neighbor, wanting to earn karma points for her granddaughter, asks her to help set up a monthly donation through her phone. Wanting to bless her son, Han Young's mother asks him if he knows anything about the president's charity. He shuts her down instantly, warning her to never give them a single cent. Han Young remembers from his past life that this foundation was eventually suspected of massive embezzlement. The chairman was arrested, and rumors swirled that President Park was the puppet master, but the investigation went nowhere. Han Young tells his team that this foundation is actually Park's secret vault for her black money. He plans to make the Tae-sik scandal so explosive that it creates an opening to attack the charity and expose the president's true face. Once the public turns on her, Han Young knows Shin-jin won't miss the chance to strike at her himself. He wants to sit back and watch the two monsters tear each other apart. As they finalize the plan, Jin-ae mentions that Tae-sik's detention has been delayed by a week. Han Young feels a chill. He remembers how brutally Tae-sik tried to kill him in the previous life. Sensing a shadow watching them from afar, Han Young worries for Jin-ae's safety and asks Cheol-woo to guard her. But after a quiet night parked outside her apartment, Cheol-woo sees nothing and assumes Han Young is overreacting. He heads to work, and Jin-ae goes down to the parking garage alone to retrieve a phone she forgot in her car. Suddenly, an assassin lunges from the darkness behind her. At the same time, Han Young is racing his car toward her building, his gut telling him something is terribly wrong. Flashback a few days. Chairman Yong-hyun of S Group had secretly met with Han Young. He handed him a credit card with a 500 million won annual limit. In exchange, Han Young was to ensure Tae-sik received only a 5-year sentence, which would later be appealed down to 3 years with 5 years of probation. Han Young, however, returned the card, demanding cash after the trial instead of avoiding a digital paper trail. Han Young immediately reported this to Shin Jin. Surprisingly, Shin Jin told him not to help the chairman. He ordered Han Young to judge the case strictly by the law. Han Young realized Shin Jin was preparing to devour the S group himself. Just as Han Young left, Shin Jin received a call from Tae-sik's secretary. The chairman had forced the secretary to take the fall for Tae-sik's illegal loans. Fearing he was being used as a disposable pawn, the secretary begged Shin Jin for protection, promising to be his puppet in exchange for his life. Meanwhile, S group hires Seon-cheol's law firm, fully expecting Han Young to follow the deal and go easy on Tae-sik. Seon-cheol gives the case to his daughter, Se-hee, thinking it's a good way for her to get experience. Se-hee is thrilled, but Han Young shuts her down with a terrifying warning. Stay as far away from this case as possible. He tells her he has zero intention of letting Tae-sik walk, and that S group is about to be systematically dismantled. He doesn't want her caught in the crossfire. Trusting Han Young, Se-hee gives the case to her brother the next day. Her father, Seon-cheol, can only sigh in disappointment, thinking his daughter lacks ambition. Little does he know, she just saved herself from a sinking ship. At the same time, the reporter Na-yeon begins her dangerous undercover investigation into the president's fake charity. The reporter Na-yeon goes full Mission Impossible. She brings in a pro-hacker to infiltrate the charity foundation's office, copying every single line of their secret books before handing the digital evidence over to Cheol-woo. But the system fights back. The next day, when Cheol-woo presents the evidence of massive embezzlement to his boss, the chief prosecutor, he gets ripped to shreds. The chief screams at him, threatening to fire him on the spot if he keeps digging. Na-yeon faces the same wall. Her news outlet places a total ban on the story, forbidding her from publishing a single word. When they report this to Han Young, he isn't even surprised. He knows that corrupt organizations are like knots. The more external pressure you apply, the tighter they bind together. To break them, you have to destroy them from the inside. His strategy: leak the information internally to force the prosecution and the media to react, triggering a chain reaction of internal conflict that will lead to their self-destruction. Exactly as he predicted, Shin Jin finds out Cheol-woo is digging and sets up a meeting. Instead of stopping him, Shin Jin offers his support, promising to help arrest the foundation's chairman. Han Young sees right through the move. Shin Jin is just offering up a sacrificial pawn to save himself. He tells Cheol-woo to play along for now while they prepare the real finishing blow. Meanwhile, Han Young secretly meets with an opposition congressman nicknamed the Mad Dog. This guy is famous for sinking his teeth into his rivals and never letting go. Han Young hands him the secret ledger, revealing how the former president used the charity to hoard a private fortune. This scandal is the perfect fuel for the congressman's presidential campaign, and he agrees to help immediately. Suddenly, a massive press conference is held. An old scavenger, a man who had donated his entire life savings to the charity, stands before the cameras in tears. He tells the world that the money he spent his life collecting was blown by the foundation in a single night of partying at luxury bars. The Mad Dog congressman pounces, publicly questioning if President Park is using the poor for personal profit. President Park is fuming as she watches the news, but Shin Jin reassures her that he'll block any search warrants. But he's wrong. Within minutes, the foundation's chairman calls in a panic. The prosecution is raiding the office right now. Cheol-woo leads the team himself, arresting the chairman for fraud and embezzlement on direct orders from the sitting president. To add fuel to the fire, Han Young leaks the secret land department documents he stole from the villa meeting. The investigation reveals that the former president used top-secret urban planning data to speculate on land, using money stolen from the charity. The public rage is deafening. The former president is forced to report for questioning. Sensing the walls closing in, she promotes Shin Jin to Chief Justice of the Seoul Court, hoping he can preside over her trial and protect her. She arrives at the prosecution with an air of absolute arrogance, surrounded by a legion of lawyers. Inside the interrogation room, she ignores the investigators, casually crossing her legs and playing games on her phone, simply waiting for the 24-hour hold to expire so she can walk out. But just as she stands up to leave, she is blocked. The prosecution has found the smoking gun, evidence that she personally controlled the accounts. While she was busy playing mobile games, Na-yeon and Cheol-woo were working around the clock. They verified the accounts and found that every single owner was either dead or missing, classic ghost accounts. They even obtained surveillance footage of her personal driver withdrawing cash from these accounts. The shadow president is officially caught in the net. Isuk is officially promoted to the Supreme Court, and Shin Jin wastes no time sliding into his spot as the Chief Justice of the Seoul Court. Drunk on his new power, Shinjin leads Han Young and Judge Kim into a high-level meeting. Shinjin doesn't just enter the room. He arrogantly sits right in the former president's chair. He starts planting his own cronies into key positions, ordering everyone to pool their resources to kill the prosecution's investigation into the charity foundation. Meanwhile, in the detention center, Tae-sik tries one last time to buy off prosecutor Jin-ae. When she rejects him with disgust, his face turns stone cold as he whispers a deadly threat. That night, as she's driving home, Jin-ae tells Han Young about the encounter. Suddenly, a chill runs down Han Young's spine as he realizes Tae-sik's true, twisted logic. Tae-sik wants to be behind bars. It's the perfect alibi. He plans to have Jin-ae murdered while he is safely in a cell. Panicked, Han Young floors the accelerator and races to her apartment. He arrives just in the nick of time. An assassin is already there, lunging at Jin-ae in the shadows. She manages to fight him off temporarily with pepper spray, but she's cornered. Han Young bursts in, saving her at the last possible second. The assassin is neutralized and hauled away by the police. A few days later, it's finally time for Tae-sik's day in court. The prosecution hits him with two massive charges: the illegal 1.2 trillion won loan from the bank and the 500 billion won secret slush fund. Tae-sik admits to the slush fund but plays innocent regarding the loan, smugly waiting for his secretary to show up and take the fall as planned. But as the minutes tick by, the secretary is nowhere to be found. Just as Tae-sik starts to sweat, Jin-ae requests a live video link with a surprise witness. The secretary's face flickers onto the courtroom monitors. He confesses everything, testifying that the illegal loans were done on Tae-sik's direct orders. But he goes even further. He plays a secret recording of Tae-sik ordering him to find an assassin to kill Jin-ae. The courtroom is paralyzed. The evidence is a smoking gun. Jin-ae demands a 20-year sentence and a staggering 1.7 trillion won fine, with the attempted murder charges to follow. It turns out that the secretary's testimony was actually orchestrated by Shinjin, another tail being cut off. The moment the live stream ends, an assassin sent by Shinjin tries to silence the secretary forever. Luckily, Cheol-woo bursts in just in time, teaming up with the secretary to knock the killer unconscious. The hitman is arrested and sent to the hospital under heavy guard. A few days later, Han Young officially hands down the verdict: 20 years in prison for Tae-sik. As the gavel hits the bench, Jin-ae's eyes fill with tears. After all these years, she has finally achieved justice for her father. Following the secretary's lead, she leads a raid on the fixer Jang's house, arresting him for his role in the slush fund. The case is closed, but the system strikes back. Because they defied their superiors to take down the S group, both Jin-ae and Cheol-woo are punitively transferred to work in a remote, rural area. However, they leave with their heads held high, knowing they did the right thing. Han Young sees them off, comforting them by saying this is just a temporary vacation and that they will be back in the heart of the action soon. Not long after, the corrupt Shinjin pulls his strings and successfully gets the former president released from custody. In a chilling final moment, Han Young is there to meet him. He offers a rare, cold smile and says, "Welcome back, Your Excellency. I'm glad to see you return safely." That night, Han Dong met with Judge Hong and gave him a list of congressmen. He convinced Mr. Kwok to reach out to the people on that list so they could attack the former president together. After saying that, Han Dong opened 2 iron boxes containing 1 billion won in cash and gave them to Judge Hong. Seeing the money, Judge Huang's eyes lit up, and he promised to help Han Dong. Not long after, the former president was attacked by the public from all sides. The prosecution was forced to form a special investigation team to look into the former president's case. Han Dong took the initiative to nominate Prosecutor Cheo-gu to Chief Justice Kong. He understood that Chief Justice Kong wanted to use this chance to get rid of the former president, and Cheo-gu, an upright man who wasn't afraid of power, was the perfect choice. Sure enough, Chief Justice Kong nodded in agreement. Cheo-gu was quickly transferred back to Seoul. Han Dong told Cheo-gu to follow Chief Justice Kang's orders first and use the special investigation team to arrest the former president to get rid of a threat. After that, it would be time to deal with Chief Justice Kong. In another development, the criminal judge who always suspected Han Dong got a photo of Han Dong and Dong Ho saving Jin-ah together. Looking at Dong Ho's muscular body in the photo, the criminal judge remembered an assassin once mentioned that a big man had stopped him while he was attacking a congressman. Because of this, he started to suspect Han Dong. In the evening, the criminal judge took Chief Justice Kong to the hospital to visit the unconscious assassin. He originally planned to show the photo to Chief Justice Kong but didn't get the chance. Chief Justice Kong went to see the assassin, who was under police arrest and receiving treatment. Fearing the assassin would reveal his secrets, he asked a female doctor to quietly get rid of the assassin. In return, he would help her resolve a medical malpractice case involving a death. After Chief Justice Kong left, the female doctor took the opportunity to inject a syringe into the assassin. Unexpectedly, he suddenly woke up and choked the female doctor until she passed out. Then, he took the doctor's phone and called Chief Justice Kong. When he heard the other person ask if the job was done, his anger flared up. The assassin killed the police officer guarding him, stole a car, and went to find Chief Justice Kong for revenge. Chief Justice Kong didn't know the assassin had escaped. He went to see the former president, who was being held in custody. Recently, Judge Hong had gone on a hunger strike to protest and teamed up with many other congressmen to attack the former president, criticizing him for using funds for money laundering and buying land illegally. Affected by public opinion, the worried former president went to Chief Justice Kong. He used the fact that he held Kang's weaknesses to threaten him, demanding to be released. Chief Justice Kang's face turned dark. That night, he called everyone to sue Oda and proposed a plan to rescue the former president. Tomorrow, when the special investigation team questions the former president, he would use the excuse of improper detention to release him. After saying this, Chief Justice Kong watched everyone's faces and noticed that each person looked different. It seemed many people did not want the former president to be released. The next day, the questioning of the former president began. At the same time, Chairman Dang and a few others invited Chief Justice Kong to dinner. The former president held their secrets, so they wanted to team up with Chief Justice Kong to get rid of the former president and put Kong in power. Chief Justice Kong nodded in agreement. After seeing them off, Chief Justice Kong bought a birthday cake to go congratulate the restaurant owner. Unexpectedly, as soon as he stepped into the shop, he saw the assassin waiting there. The criminal judge stepped forward to calm the assassin down, but surprisingly, he was stabbed in the stomach and fell to the ground. Then, the assassin faced Chief Justice Kong. Chief Justice Kong tried to stay calm and lied, saying he thought the assassin would never wake up and didn't want him to suffer, which is why he took that desperate measure. He also threatened that if the assassin killed him, no one would help clean up the mess, and the assassin would be caught as a fugitive. The assassin was convinced, dropped his knife, and knelt before Chief Justice Kong, repeatedly apologizing. Chief Justice Kong didn't scold him at all. He only asked the assassin to do one thing for him. Very soon after, the reason for the former president's detention was deemed improper, and he was released and returned to sue Oda. Everyone raised their glasses to celebrate. The former president had a drink and then went back to his office to rest. The assassin, hiding in the shadows, secretly locked the door. In the meeting room, everyone was raising their glasses, but this time, the person they were celebrating was Chief Justice Kong, because he had become the new master of Sue Oda. Han Dong was also called from the back of the room by Chief Justice Kong to stand next to him and celebrate together. At that moment, the assassin was strangling the former president. The former president struggled, grabbed a gun from a drawer, and shot the assassin, wounding him before running away in a panic. Unexpectedly, Han Dong was already waiting at the door. Han Dong told the former president that he had nowhere else to hide because Chief Justice Kong also had evidence of his slush funds. Therefore, it would be better if the two of them worked together. He would turn the prison into a second Sue Oda, so the former president could rebuild his cabinet there and take revenge on Chief Justice Kang's faction. The former president had no other choice but to get into Chiogu's car and leave. Inside Sue Oda, hearing the news that the former president had disappeared, everyone was panicked. They all blamed Chief Justice Kong, criticizing him for wanting to murder the former president. A congressman also took this chance to demand that Chief Justice Kong take full responsibility. Chief Justice Kang's face was ice cold. He planned to release a video of the congressman assaulting a secretary right then and there. The angry congressman choked Chief Justice Kong. During the struggle, Chief Justice Kong accidentally used a broken piece of a wine bottle to kill the congressman. Seeing someone dead, everyone ran away in a panic. Chief Justice Kong stood there with a look of disbelief. He had just reached the top only to fall into a deep abyss. Before he could pull himself together, the badly wounded assassin suddenly rushed in, collapsed, and died right next to him. When Han Dong arrived, he only saw Chief Justice Kong sitting alone and drinking. Kong threw out the photo of Han Dong and Dong Ho, demanding to know why Han Dong had betrayed him. Han Dong simply said he did all of this for justice. He didn't want to let someone with an evil heart like Chief Justice Kong control the legal system and sue Oda, which would push South Korea into hell. Chief Justice Kong tore the photo to pieces and asked Han Dong one last time if he wanted to join him in changing the judicial system, which was being manipulated by tycoons and the elite. Han Dong, of course, did not agree. The two of them got into a fight. Han Dong was no match for Chief Justice Kong. He was grabbed and thrown to the ground. Chief Justice Kong picked up a knife from the floor and slashed Han Dong's neck. Han Dong's vision started to get blurry, and he was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. The next day, Han Dong woke up in the hospital. The doctor told him that, luckily, The knife only grazed his jugular vein, which was how he managed to stay alive. Right after the doctor finished talking, Se-hai suddenly showed up uninvited. She took the initiative to kiss Han Dong and apologized for slapping him when they first met. Han Dong was left not knowing how to react. After Se-hai left, the nurse asked Han Dong if she should throw away the gauze from his wound. Han Dong happened to see police cars arriving downstairs, and combined with the nurse's words, he felt something was wrong. He quickly changed his clothes to escape from the police. He figured out that Se-hai had secretly taken his gauze. Later, a forensic worker secretly smeared blood from Han Dong's gauze onto the wound on the congressman's neck. Han Dong quickly contacted Chief Justice Beck and told him the truth about being framed. Chief Justice Beck told him that the police report showed Chief Justice Kong had murdered the congressman, and at the same time, the criminal judge had also been killed by a robber. Han Dong realized that Chief Justice Kong wanted to frame him as an accomplice in the congressman's murder and was determined to catch him personally. At this time, Chief Justice Kong learned from Lawyer Du that Han Dong had escaped, and he felt sorry in his heart. He took the money Lawyer Du had prepared and planned to run away. Before leaving, he asked Lawyer Du to find a way for him to meet the former president one last time. When she found out Han Dong was framed as an accomplice in the congressman's murder, Se-hai cried her heart out. Before that, Lawyer Du had convinced Se-hai to follow Chief Justice Kang's orders to frame Han Dong. Many cases at their law firm relied on Chief Justice Kang's help. If they didn't do what he asked, the law firm would completely fall apart. Not long after, Chief Justice Kong called Han Dong, reminding him that he needed to find him before the police did if he wanted to clear his name of the murder charge. Han Dong, of course, was ready to see this through to the end. Se-hai stumbled home, completely wasted. Her lawyer, Mr. Du, saw right through her. He told her she never should have gotten involved in this mess, and now she's drowning in regret. But Se-hai stood her ground, insisting it was her choice to make. Desperate to escape the nightmare, she demanded that he book her a flight immediately. She needed to get as far away as possible to forget everything. Meanwhile, a battered and bruised Han Dong was busy patching himself up. His mind was set. He was going to wipe out the Suoda syndicate and make sure Chief Judge Kong wouldn't get a chance to stab him in the back again. Speaking of Judge Kong, the man was busy orchestrating a high-level coup to topple the president. He threatened his inner circle, vowing to leak evidence of their embezzlement and corruption if they didn't cooperate. At the same time, Han Dong handed Dine a USB containing a spoofed number from a Suoda member. He asked her to call it so they could track the voice and confirm the identity. The two began tailing Judge Kong, but they hit a snag when a police cruiser pulled them over for a random check. Thinking fast, Dine slapped handcuffs on Han Dong and lied to the officers, pretending she was an agent transporting a prisoner. They managed to slip through, but the delay caused them to lose sight of the judge. Judge Kong eventually arrived at the prison, heavily disguised to avoid detection. Before heading in, he called Dun Hyoke, asking him to hold onto a file of bribery evidence until his return. Inside the prison, Kong met with Old Man Gong. He didn't waste any time. He wanted Gong's slush fund accounts. In exchange, he promised to help Gong reclaim his spot in Suoda. Gong was hesitant, having already cut a deal with the cops. But Kong played his winning card, 30 billion won. Gong's eyes lit up at the mention of the money. However, the moment Kong walked away, Gong secretly called Han Dong to tip him off. After the meeting, Judge Kong went to grab a meal with Chiogu at the prosecutor's office. He kept glancing at his watch, which struck Chiogu as odd. At that exact moment, back in his cell, Gong finished his meal and stood up to brush his teeth. Suddenly, a wave of agonizing chest pain hit him. Turned out the deal was a trap. Kong had planned to get rid of him all along. Gong lost everything, including his life. Meanwhile, Han Dong tracked down Dr. A at the hospital. When the doctor tried to play dumb, Han Dong pulled out a lethal-looking syringe. Terrified, she confessed that she saw Judge Kong fleeing the scene, but claimed she had nothing to do with it. Judge Kang's moment of triumph didn't last long. He was sitting at home when a breaking news report brought him back to reality. Dr. A had gone on record, accusing him of inciting murder. The report also exposed his history of bribery and illegal profits. Realizing the tables had turned, Kong scrambled to pack his bags and flee. Later, Chiogu went to clear out Gong's cell. Among the belongings, he found a notebook with a folded page containing a biblical verse. Han Dong remembered Kong once mentioning that Gong was a fanatic who would never actually read the Bible. So why was it there? As they examined it closely, Chiogu noticed a strange drawing of a ceramic jar on the back of the paper. The mystery was far from over. Han Dong finally pieced the puzzle together. He rushed to Judge Kang's office and, after a frantic search, found the smoking gun, a USB drive hidden at the bottom of a large ceramic jar. It was loaded with dirt on every high-ranking official involved in the scandal. Chiyogu and Dine didn't waste a second. They started rounding up the big shots one by one, including the powerful Chairman Dang. Meanwhile, Dun Hyoke realized the ship was sinking. He tried to follow Judge Kang's emergency orders to burn a stash of incriminating files, but he wasn't fast enough. Chiyogu popped up right in front of him, catching him red-handed. Just like that, Dun Hyoke was hauled off to jail along with the rest of the crew. With the evidence locked in, it was only a matter of time before Judge Kong was caught. Han Dong knew the judge wouldn't just surrender. He was likely looking for a way out by sea. He was right. Kong was at the docks, throwing stacks of cash at a smuggler to get him across the border. But there's no honor among thieves. The smuggler recognized Kang's face from the news and ordered his goons to take him down. Kong was backed into a corner, fighting for his life, when Han Dong suddenly appeared. Han Dong wasn't there to save him out of kindness. He wanted Kong alive so he could face the law. In a wild twist, the two rivals teamed up to take on the mob. They were landing sharp, heavy hits, but they were simply outnumbered. Just as they were about to be overwhelmed, Dong Ho and the police swarmed the area, arresting the smugglers and finally putting Judge Kong in handcuffs. In court, Judge Kong remained defiant. He went on a bitter rant about how the law is full of holes, which is why he had to step into the shadows. He played the victim card, talking about his tragic childhood and how he grew up with nothing, claiming he only wanted to fix the system. Han Dong wasn't buying it. He fired back, saying that being extreme isn't the way to change the world and that justice always catches up eventually. The verdict? Life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the dust settled, a mysterious new leader took over Suoda, leaving Chief Justice Beck with a knowing, cryptic smile. As for Han Dong, he opened his own private firm, continuing his mission to fight for the innocent. And that's the end of our story. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more of the latest updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.